Good morning, Madam President and Senators. In a few days, we will move into Holy Week, a time when we reflect on the highs and lows in the life of Jesus Christ as he journeys to the cross. Today, I will share three things from this period in his life. First, even in the midst of trial and difficulties, he didn't quit, but moved forward. Our Savior could have said, I didn't come to endure this for these mere mortals who don't even appreciate my sacrifice. Rather, Isaiah 50 and 5 states, the Lord has opened my ear, and I was not rebellious. I did not turn backward. He moved forward to the cross. Senators, true leaders complete their assignments, even when they have to go alone or with a small crowd. Following your mission means being a person who follows through, whether you have accolades or persons shouting you down. It's easy to be the golden child, but how are you at being the rejected one? Jesus' example will challenge you and I to always remember your why and to move forward, come what may. A.W. Tozer said, when we have nothing left but God, we discover that God is enough. Secondly, Jesus' life teaches us that in tough times, leaders need faith. Isaiah 50 and 7 says, the Lord God helps me. Therefore, I have set my face like flint, and I know that I shall not be put to shame. When things are going well, we have lots of friends, associates, and persons who hang on for the ride. But when the tide shifts, we're all alone. When our Lord needed his disciples, they were all gone. Judas betrayed him or sold him out. Peter denied him, and the rest deserted him. But prior to this, he had spent time agonizing in prayer and communion with his Heavenly Father. This prayer time empowered him for the journey ahead. Senators, I want to encourage you to cultivate faith in God so that when the bad press occurs, or you are betrayed or thrown under the bus, you will have internal grace and fortitude to maintain your dignity in the midst of adversity. Someone has said, don't be afraid of criticism. The tallest trees are always confronted by the strongest winds. And thirdly, Jesus' life teaches us that leaders make sacrifices that may never be valued. 1 Corinthians 1 and a part of verse 18 from the contemporary English version of the Bible states, the message about the cross doesn't make sense to those to lost people. The significance of the cross is still debated today, and although Christ's sacrifice made salvation available to all, there are still many who do not believe. His life shows the importance of not allowing popular opinion to guide your service or the way you lead. Do what is right. What is your purpose? And strive to leave the Bahamas a better place. Had Jesus sought to collect data or to do what is popular, he would have abandoned his purpose and mission, and humanity would have had no hope. Jesus' example reminds us that sometimes your service may not be valued now, but in the future, history will be good to you for all that you have done for those who follow you. George B. Hinckley said, you will come to know that what appears today to be a sacrifice will prove instead to be the greatest investment you will ever make. And so, senators and leaders, always move forward, even if you go alone, once you know you are on the right track and serving your life's purpose. Cultivate faith in God so that you will not allow the opinions of others to cause you to do what is popular rather than what is right. And know that sometimes the good things you do may take a while for others to value and appreciate, but do good anyway. Amen? Amen. Let's pray. Oh Lord, as we journey to Holy Week and reflect on your suffering for us, may our senators and leaders everywhere never take your sacrifice for granted. Help them to remember that sincere leadership will be challenged and tested, but that you will go with them in these difficult seasons. Help each of them to be men and women of integrity. May they seek to serve with a servant's heart and to do what is right for all people. Help them to stand for right and not to compromise their faith and to work as unto you. Cover them and their families with your precious blood, and may they trust you fully. Guide them in their deliberations today, and be with them into Holy Week and beyond. In the precious name of Jesus Christ we pray. Please join in the prayer of our Lord. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Good morning, Senators. Today is Thursday, the 26th of March, 2026, morning session of the Senate. Adoption of minutes.
President, good morning. I move that the minutes of the session of the Senate held on the afternoon of Tuesday, 24th of March, 2026, be adopted.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the minutes of the meeting held on Tuesday, the 24th of March, 2026, be adopted. As many are in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. The minutes of Tuesday, the 24th of March, 2026, are hereby adopted. Motions for leave of absence, leave to resign, swearing in of new senators, communications by the President. This morning, Senators, in the gallery, I would like to acknowledge the presence of my nephew, Amari Hall, from Harbor Island. He flew into town just this morning, and so I made it mandatory that he come and join me today. He was with me at the opening of Parliament, but Amari Hall is 16 years old, and he's a student at the Baylor School in Chattanooga, Tennessee, grade 11. He's on the football team as well as the track team, and he also maintains a 4.0 average. I would like to think that he got his intellect from me, but his mother, Rashida Stubbs from Harbor Island, she wouldn't like if I said that, so I would like to give her all of the glory, the praise, and the honor, and give God all of the glory, praise, and honor for everything that he's doing in your life, Amari. Thank you for being here with us today. Yes. And I would also like to thank our esteemed chaplain for such a wonderful and spirit-filled message that she gave this morning, as always, leading us into Holy Week and teaching us and admonishing us to follow Christ. And indeed, we will be following the purpose that he has for our lives, and that we ought to remain in faith and prayer. Madam Chaplain, I can't thank you enough for always having the right word to bestow upon us senators. And as I said to you earlier, your words linger with us throughout the day, and they often quote you. So thank you for everything that you've done for the Senate chamber. And finally, I would like to encourage all persons under the sound of my voice, especially the youth in the Bahamas, to please register to vote. Register to vote. It is a God-given right, and the right to vote did not come easy. And so as a result of it, we should not take it for granted. So I'm speaking in particular to the young people of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Please, register to vote. And those of you who have not yet transferred, please, I acknowledge you to kindly and with urgency to transfer and also to verify. The Parliamentary Registration Department has gone above and beyond in terms of opening many substations, many pop-ups that are open until very late in the evenings, around 8:30 in the evenings at a significant number of places, not just in Nassau, but also in the Family of Islands. So once again, I encourage persons to please register to vote, transfer, and verify. And I trust that all of the senators have already transferred or verified and done. I'm not going to ask for a show of hands, but that's the confidence that I have in you. Yeah. No, I'm not going to ask Senator Major, but I have extreme confidence that all of you have done what is necessary to ensure that you have documented yourself so that you can vote in the upcoming general elections. And may God continue to bless each and every one of you. I wish you all a wonderful and a beautiful and a spirit-filled Easter. May God continue to bless your families, and may God continue to bless the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Messages from the Governor General. Messages from the House of Assembly.
Message from the House of Assembly.
Bahamas number 59. Message to the Honorable the President and the Honorable members of the Senate from the Speaker and representatives of the Honorable House of Assembly. The House of Assembly acquaints the Honorable the Senate that they have agreed to the following resolution and desire the consent of that Honorable Chamber, namely, resolved that pursuant to Section 5(3)(a) of the Ministry of Finance Act, this House approves the conveyance of 3.073 acres of land situated in Pittsburgh to the Minister responsible for housing. Resolved that pursuant to Section 5(3)(a) of the Ministry of Finance Act, this House approves the conveyance of 38.480 acres of land situated in Georgetown, Exeter, to the Minister responsible for housing. House of Assembly, Nassau, 25th March 2026, Patricia DeVoe, Speaker.
Laying of documents by ministers.
You, Madam President. Madam President, I beg leave to lay on the table of the Senate the Royal Bahamas Police Force Commissioners Policing Plan 2026.
Order document be brought up. Order document do lie on the table. Further laying of documents.
None, Madam President.
Communications by ministers. Communications by senators. Questions. Answers to questions. Presentations of petitions. Appointment of select committees. Reports of committees. First reading of bills. The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Michael Halkitis.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I beg leave to introduce and have read for first time a bill for an act to amend the Port Authorities Act.
Is there a
Second.
seconder?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for a first time. A bill for an act to amend the Port Authorities Act. As many as in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Order the bill be read for a first time.
A bill for an act to amend the Port Authorities Act.
For the first reading of bills,
None, Madam President.
second reading and committal of bills. Committee of the Whole. Third reading and passing of bills. Consideration of House amendments. Resolutions. The chair recognizes Senator Honorable Michael Halkitis.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Madam President, once again, good morning to you and all senators. Madam President, I rise to move for the passage. We will be in total debating 3 resolutions, all related to land and the transfer of land from the treasurer to the minister responsible for housing. The intention of 2 of the resolutions is to assist with the regularization of title to land and resolve some long-standing issues of individuals being able to get proper title. And the third resolution, I would call it, is for the transfer of a total of 68 acres of land in 2 parcels in Exuma, one 38.4 acres and the other 30 acres, to the Minister for Housing for the purpose, for a nominal amount, for the purpose of providing housing. And so, Madam President, just a brief on I will deal with them in the order of what I would call the Bozine Town resolution, and then I would speak about the Exuma resolution, and finally the Pitt Road resolution. Madam President, the Bozine Town resolution simply is seeking for the transfer from the treasurer of the Bahamas to the minister responsible for housing of a total of approximately 30 acres of land in what we call the Bozine Town area and the Bozine land. One parcel 19.9 acres, another of 5.4 acres, another parcel of 3.8 acres, and another parcel of approximately 1/2 an acre. And historically, Madam President, I'm advised that these lands have been the subject of various court cases, and by deed of exchange, as indicated in the resolution, the treasurer of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas executed an exchange of land in the Bozine Town area. 30 acres of land in Bozine Town was conveyed to a company called Harold Road Properties Limited in exchange for 80 acres of land in Abaco. And so now what we are seeking to do with this Bozine land is to now have the treasurer transfer this land to the minister responsible for housing. And as I said, Madam President, there have long been issues of title and regularization, etc. And this is in an effort to allow the Minister of Housing to move to resolve those title issues. So there was a court case. At the conclusion of it, the end result was an exchange of land where Harold Road Properties Limited conveyed to the treasurer 30 acres of land in Bozine. In return, they received 80 acres of comparable value in Abaco, and now we're seeking to have the treasurer convey that land to the Minister of Housing. The second one that I mentioned, Madam President, is in the area of Exuma, where we're seeking to have the treasurer, who is in possession of the land, and two parcels are being addressed in this resolution. One of roughly 38 and a half acres, and the other of exactly 30 acres, and both are being conveyed to the minister responsible for housing for a nominal amount of $10. And I would when I move the resolution, I'll read the first and last paragraph. And so that land is being conveyed to the minister responsible for housing for the nominal amount of $10, and the intention is to build affordable housing for Bahamians on Exuma. And the third resolution, as I said, Madam President, deals with the Pit Road area, where a total of 3.073 acres of land is being conveyed by the treasurer, who is in possession of the land, to the minister responsible for housing for a nominal amount of $10. And all of these, Madam President, in the case of Bozine and Pit Road, we have people already living on the land. In the case of Exuma, we have the intention of building affordable housing. And so, Madam President, I would just say that I rise to move for passage of the following resolution, and I will read the first and the last paragraph of the first one at this time. This is for the Bozine land, whereas by deed of exchange dated 27th day of June 2025, between the treasurer of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, a corporation sole established under Section 4.1 of the Ministry of Finance Act, Chapter 23, Revised Statute Law of the Bahamas 2000, and Harold Road Properties Limited, a company incorporated under the laws of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, and referred to as the company. The company transferred to the treasurer all that piece or parcel of land hereinafter described in the first schedule, attached hereto, and it referred to as the Bozine land, in exchange for a crown grant of 80 acres or thereabouts on the island of Abaco. And I'll read the second paragraph. And whereas the treasurer wishes to transfer the fee simple of the Bozine land to the minister responsible for housing in order to regularize the title of the Bozine land. And the final paragraph, now therefore be it resolved that pursuant to Section 5.3a of the Act, this House approves the conveyance of the Bozine land to the minister responsible for housing for a nominal amount of $10 Bahamian. Madam President, at the crux of all of these matters is the matter of housing, and in some cases the regularization of the land in order to remove uncertainty as to the title, and in the other case, in Exuma, the provision of land in order that the government might continue its program of providing housing to its citizens. Madam President, and we know, for example, that Exuma has, in recent times, had very robust growth in its economy, and indeed one of the drawbacks or one of the consequences of that has been an acceleration in the cost of housing. And so that has been one complaint of workers, for example, that the cost of housing has gone up. But almost universally, and indeed in the Bahamas, Madam President, the cost of living is a concern amongst Bahamians, and the cost of housing is a significant component of that cost of living. Building costs, the cost of building materials have gone up. We know that in the immediate aftermath of and within the COVID pandemic, how the price of building materials accelerated. So the cost of building has gone up. The cost of rent is another vexing matter for Bahamians, and exacerbated by the reduction in supply, where you have some people putting what would have been traditional rental properties apartments, for example, has gone down. And, of course, again, the accelerating costs of rent. And so it is good policy, Madam President, for the government, any government, to seek to provide affordable housing for its citizens and to regulate and protect those who regulate rentals and those who have to rent properties. And there are many reasons why it is a good policy for government to seek to provide affordable housing. I will touch on just a few, both from an economic and from a social aspect. Madam President, those of us of a certain age would know that, the advice we got from our elders was when you get your first job, buy a lot, or buy a piece of property. Said, buy a lot, get yourself a lot, right? And that was, it was good advice because what it is it's an investment. And the idea is you get a piece of property, and by and large, in our country, in our economy, the price and the lots would tend to appreciate. They do not tend to go down. And so that was the acquisition of real estate is the sort of entry point where people begin to build wealth and build assets, purchase of property. And indeed, Madam President, studies have shown that of course, the economic benefits of owning a house is that you have an asset that increases in value, owning property. Another benefit is that particularly if you want to develop it or if you got a mortgage to do it, it's a form of saving because you are even though you are paying the loan, as you are doing that, your asset is appreciating, and so value is being accumulated. And as you move into your house, Madam President, if you are under mortgage, you have a fairly predictable cost of what it costs for you to service your mortgage on a monthly basis, and you have less of a worry about escalating rent or the landlord saying, well, the rent going up. Madam President, what has always sort of intrigued me is whenever we look at some research about this, whenever we're debating housing, is that, you have academic research that says, and we might know it anecdotally, just from experience, but you have actual research that shows there are many positive social benefits of housing, where they can show that, for example, where people own their own home, the students do better. The children do better as students. They do better in school. Less incidence of teenage pregnancy, more a spirit of neighborhood living, more pride taken in the property, so the properties are upkept. There's an opportunity to transfer wealth amongst generations, so those who might have had the starting point buying that lot, they've built it now and they can pass it on to the next generation. And so improved what we call civic engagement, where there's a sense of neighborhood, and you have neighborhood associations, and a general sense that we want to keep our neighborhood clean and safe and a good place to raise our children. And so you have economic benefits where you're talking about when particularly as the government promotes home ownership, you have all of the economic benefits related to construction, furnishing, utility connection, and all of that trickles down, employment, etc. But you also have those very positive social outcomes that we all agree are things that we should strive for. Madam President, I would say this, that the present administration is doing a lot to add to the supply of affordable housing. So you see Renaissance being established. People have moved in, Pinecrest, Vinspen in the area of St. Vincent Road and Cowpen Road. We've also had construction in some of the islands, including Abaco, San Salvador, But the government cannot do it all. There must be a way to incentivize the private sector to get more involved in the supply of housing, because that, I believe, is what will contribute to the reduction in the cost when we have more supply. More supply of affordable housing, more supply of affordable rental properties, Madam President. And we can talk some more about rental properties as the debate goes on. And what we have to do, the government can do its part. And I think this back a few administrations ago, we introduced we recognized that, and I recognized, I remember when I bought my first lot. And I saw the price, right? And they say 10% down. I said, oh, yeah, man, I can buy that. 10% of this is that. I have that. Yeah, man. Then you got the lawyer fee, the commitment fee, and then those days there was the stamp tax. First you got I could never understand, right? I guess I could never understand the commitment fee, right? Because what they said basically is, yes, we're going to lend it. We did the credit check and everything. And I tell you, the credit check was, put you through the ringer. Because, you think you have a good job and you're making some good money until you go to borrow a couple of dollars to buy a lot, and it's like, you get put through the ringer. But like I said, so they say, okay, you get the loan, but there's a commitment fee, $500, $600. And there was no, yeah, it's a commitment. I can never understand what a commitment fee is for, right? But you got a commitment fee, and I ain't ashamed to say I still don't understand why they have to charge you a commitment fee. But anyhow, I figure it's just to go to the bottom line. The commitment fee, the lawyer fee, the stamp tax, some other tax. And so when you got 10% down, all of a sudden, the fees and all of the stuff associated with it, it's quite an amount of money that you have to come up with. And that is one of the, and when back in, I think it was the second Christie administration, could have been the first, where he decided that, something needs to be done. And we introduced a program to waive stamp tax on conveyances for first-time home buyers. And it started at a ceiling. We could go so high. I think we might have started at 300,000, and then recently we raised it to 600, in an effort to take some of that burden off people who were buying their first home to live in or constructing their first home to live in, and they were actually living in it. Recently, the Prime Minister announced, Madam President, that we will soon be amending legislation so that individuals who own up to a triplex and they live in the complex, live in one of the apartments, the other two would be free from real property tax. Because what we found is that, yes, a part of building wealth is that another good piece of advice is people tell you, well, build a duplex, live in one and rent one, and the rent will take care of the mortgage until you have to pay real property tax on the second one, and so that rent, pays some of the real property tax. Like Faisal said, being real, and so we made the commitment that we will no longer require people to pay real property tax on those, and we'll be bringing that amendment, I think around the budget time we expect that to be done. And so those are some ways. There needs to be other ways, Madam President, to incentivize construction. And I'm sure that we'll be hearing many ideas on how to do it. I think one thing is we need to look at modular construction where the cost can come down, but still have construction that can withstand all of the hurricanes. And then with modern technology, those things can be done. It's just a matter of making sure our inspectors and regulators can approve and pass these modular units. But there has to be more supply. I'm very, very encouraged by the fact that our Minister of Housing has begun to put up compulsory acquisition notices on some abandoned and derelict overgrown properties in certain parts of New Providence with the intention of acquiring these properties, compensating the owners for the fair value, and using that property to provide more housing, either in terms of rental units or government affordable housing. We are in some discussions, Madam President, with a view, this issue of housing is a major issue, and the provision of it, and how do you finance it and keep it affordable. And we are in some discussions with some partners on how to do it. And one of the fortunate things, unfortunate, is that this is an issue, affordable housing, that is throughout the Caribbean. And so one benefit is that we can consult with our partners in the region and see what some of them are doing, what some of the agencies like the Inter-American Development Bank is doing to assist countries in addressing this issue. And so, Madam President, I think it's a good step. I'm sure that those individuals in Bozine will be very happy that the light is at the end of the tunnel in terms of regularization. Those in the Pit Road area, a similar thing, and additional land being, I think I understand from the Minister of Housing that some of the land that's being acquired is vacant. So there's an opportunity to build housing, and where necessary to relocate people from housing that's not up to code. It can be done in an orderly manner. And in Exuma, a total of 60 acres where I'm sure real nice subdivision can be built for the benefit of those Exumians and so many Exumians who might live in other islands who want to come home and now have the opportunity to have affordable housing. And so, Madam President, with that, I would just move for a second reading. I'll just move for passage of do the first one again. Whereas by deed of exchange dated 27th day of June 2025 between the Treasurer of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, Treasury Corporation, sole established under Section 4.1 of the Ministry of Finance Act, Chapter 23, Revised Statute Law of the Bahamas 2000, and Howell Road Properties Limited, the company incorporated under the laws of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. The company transferred to the Treasurer all that certain piece or parcel of land hereinafter described in the first schedule attached hereto, quote, the Bozine land in exchange for a crown grant of 80 acres or thereabouts on the island of Abaco. Now therefore be it resolved that pursuant to Section 5.3a of the Act, this House approves the conveyance of the Bozine land to the Minister responsible for housing for a nominal amount of $10.
Is there a seconder? The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable J.Ann Major.
Good morning, Madam President. Good morning, Senators. Madam President, I rise in this honorable place today in support of land resolutions which authorize the conveyance by the Treasurer to the Minister of Housing for housing developments across the Bahamas. But Madam President, before I begin, I would like to take this opportunity to extend my condolences to the family of Bradley Crawley Jr. Bradley is one of my classmates, or fellow graduate of the class of 2002 of Kingsway Academy. When we were in the Senate, when the Senate last met, I got the call that he was in dire straits in ICU and unfortunately lost his battle that day due to a short illness. So I say to his wife, Valanda, his children, his babies, his sister, Anishka, his mom, and of course my fellow graduates of the class of 2002 of Kingsway Academy. Bradley, may you rest in peace. I'm glad that you are out of pain, out of your suffering, and my prayers are with your family during this very, very difficult time. Madam President, turning now to the matter at hand, the land resolutions, which are a part of a broader and deliberate strategy by this administration to expand home ownership opportunities for Bahamians and to make real the dreams of many Bahamians to own a piece of the rock. For many Bahamians, the dream of owning a home represents stability, dignity, and the ability to build generational wealth. Yet we must be honest about the realities facing many families today. Land prices have risen, development costs have increased, financing requirements are more challenging, all of which create significant barriers to home ownership in our country. Madam President, in addition to creating new housing developments, these resolutions also serve another critical and often overlooked purpose: the regularization and rectification of title for Bahamians who for years have occupied land in poorly planned communities. Any seasoned real estate attorney in the Bahamas knows about the title issues that plague the residents of the Boseytown community. The lack of clear title has created real hardship for those Bahamians, and by acquiring these lands, the government is seeking to finally bring order where there's been so much uncertainty. As an attorney with nearly 2 decades of experience in the real estate space, I've sat across the table from countless hardworking Bahamian men and women who are not asking for handouts, but simply for a fair chance to own, to build, and to belong. I've seen firsthand the frustration when land is inaccessible, when inventory is limited, and when the dream of home ownership just simply feels out of reach. Without land being properly assembled, planned, and made available for development, the pipeline for housing simply cannot exist. So when this government moves to acquire land for housing purposes, it is not an abstract exercise. It is the very foundation upon which future communities will be built. Madam President, this is why these resolutions matter. They reflect a government that understands that housing is not a luxury, it is a cornerstone of national development. It is tied to wealth creation, to stability, to community building, and of course to generational progress. What distinguishes this administration, Madam President, is not just intention, but action. During its term in office, this administration has moved decisively to expand housing opportunities across our islands. Bahamians need only look around. We've seen real developments come on stream in the last 4.5 years. Renaissance, Pinecrest, Vinspin Meadows, alongside expansion in our family islands through Ocean Hole Estates, Andros, and now we see Exuma being added to that list. That is what doing the work looks like. For years, Madam President, Bahamians were promised solutions, but what they received was stagnation. Projects were announced with great fanfare, but saw little to no meaningful delivery. The pipeline for affordable housing dried up, and too many Bahamians were left waiting for land, waiting for answers, and waiting for opportunity. Madam President, now we hear from the opposition a renewed promise, this time to build 5,000 homes. I believe they said in the first year. I could be mistaken, but 5,000. Am I incorrect with 5,000 or the year? Okay, they promised to build 5,000 homes. It sounds impressive. It sounds ambitious. But I ask Bahamians to ask themselves a simple question. Where was this urgency when they had the authority to act? Because the truth is, ambition without execution is simply rhetoric. We cannot ignore the track record. We cannot forget when they had the opportunity to deliver at scale, they fell short. And now on the eve of an election, when this administration has done the work by building the homes, we are being asked to believe in numbers that are not grounded in demonstrated capacity or credible planning. This administration, on the other hand, has been proven. We have done the work and we are doing the work. We are acquiring land more strategically, as evidenced by these resolutions, to ensure that development is not haphazard, but intentional. We are ensuring that infrastructure, access, and sustainability are considered from the outset. We are creating tangible inventory, not just hypothetical projections. And most importantly, we are doing so with the understanding of the legal, regulatory, and practical realities that govern land development in the Bahamas. Madam President, land acquisition for housing is not simply about taking possession. It is about unlocking potential. It requires careful due diligence, proper titling, thoughtful planning, and of course, responsible execution. These are not, again, abstract concepts, Madam President. They are the daily realities that I see in my profession. And I can say with confidence that the approach being taken by this government reflects a seriousness of purpose that is both necessary and commendable. We recognize that increasing supply is critical. We recognize that affordability must remain central. And we recognize that if we are truly to empower Bahamians, we must create options, real options, for home ownership and upward mobility. Madam President, from where I sit, the contrast couldn't be more clear. One side promises, very loud, expansive, but untested in delivery. On the other side, we have performance that is measured, deliberate, and already yielding results. Under the leadership of our Prime Minister, Philip Brave Davis, they don't call him brave for nothing, this government has shown and proven its commitment to tackling our biggest challenges. A government that is committed to building not just houses, but hope. Not just subdivisions, but sustainable communities. Not just policies, but pathways for Bahamians to thrive. So today, in supporting these resolutions, I do so not just as a senator, but as a professional who understands that the stakes are high, and as a Bahamian who believes deeply in the power of ownership. Because when we give Bahamians access to land, we are not just giving them property, we're giving them possibility. And that, Madam President, is the work that we are committed to doing. That is the work we are committed to continue doing this second term. Madam President, this administration understands that housing is not just about building houses, but about building systems that work. Systems that make land available, systems that correct the mistakes of the past by regularizing title and bringing long-standing uncertainty to those who have sat in limbo for far too long. Systems that ensure that development is planned, structured, and sustainable. Madam President, this administration is getting it right. Not through grand promises or ambitious figures thrown into the air without a plan, but through deliberate, disciplined action, and by doing the hard, technical, and unseen work. When Bahamians hear the promises, they must ask themselves, where is the land and where is the plan? Because real progress, Madam President, is measured by what is being delivered on the ground by this administration. And what is being delivered by this administration is meaningful progress. Progress you can see, progress you can touch, progress you can feel. This is a government that is prepared to do the work, a government that is laying the foundation quite literally for Bahamians to own a piece of the rock and secure their future. For these reasons, Madam President, I stand firmly in support of these resolutions. May God continue to guide our steps and guide our brave Prime Minister Davis, and may he continue to bless the people of this great Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Thank you, Madam President.
It has been moved and seconded that the following resolution be agreed. Whereas, by a deed of exchange dated 27th day of June, 2025, between the Treasurer of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, a corporation sole established under Section 4, subsection 1 of the Ministry of Finance Act, Chapter 23, and Howell Road Properties Limited, a company incorporated under the laws of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, the company transferred to the treasurer all that certain piece or parcel of land hereinafter described in the first schedule attached hereto, the Boseian land, in exchange for a crown grant of 80 acres or thereabout on the island of Abaco. Now therefore be it resolved that pursuant to Section 3, subsection 3, pursuant to Section 5, subsection 3, subsection A of the Act, This House approved the conveyance of the Bosian land to the minister responsible for housing for a nominal amount of $10. As many, the chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Reuben Ramming.
Thank you, Madam President. It was a joy to listen to Senator Alcides and seconder. It saw the virtue of the work of the Free National Movement. Historically, as persons would know, whenever the Free National Movement comes into play in the government, there's a lot of housekeeping, fixing, and correction that needs to be done. And setting in place the bedrock foundations and doing the heavy lifting, sometimes the heavy lifting that may be the non-sexy. And then the party of partying, which is the Progressive Liberal Party, comes in and wastes the spoils in many instances. And at the end of the day, the Free National Movement, as they have to do in this election, have to come back again and correct. I stand to look at using the statements that would have been echoed and probably may continue to be echoed in this House by persons from the Progressive Liberal Party, where they begin to use inaccurate terms. They know that they're inaccurate about the Free National Movement and saying no houses constructed and try to diminish the value. But if you listen to the very statements coming out of the mouth of the first two governmental senators, they prove the heart and the work that the Free National Movement always bring to the table. Because you cannot build houses in the air. Maybe you could build them on the sea if the Progressive Liberal Party intend to build a bunch of houseboats for us to live in an insecure harbor. In order to build houses in this country, you need to find land. You need to settle land issues and land disputes, which is ongoing even now with this administration. I recall you are now the president. Say sorry by the president. Hey, I think you was in the physical. I want to forgive you because I know, but you're now in the chair, okay? I accept your apology. That's okay, Madam Vice. I know the feeling because whenever I go into Dollar in the United States, I in the parking lot, I have to remember keep right. So I give you that latitude because you ain't gone on the highway yet. So you recalculate it. Thank you for the smile. But on a very serious note, when you listen carefully to the fundamentals and the heart in which was expressed by both these senators, they speak truth, but then truth misapplied can still be a lie. Because they take the truth and they apply it to themselves, but yet with the same tongue try to discredit the truth and the reality and the gravity of the work that the Free National Movement has been doing in connection with housing. I stand with Senator Alcides when he reflected so well, and I started to make some notes on what he was saying, and when he was speaking about how, you know, when you get your first job, you know, you're encouraged, the first thing to get is to get that lot because that is an investment, a very good investment, you know, and that's how you generate wealth and asset. And he spoke so rightly and properly so on it. It was good advice then, it's good advice now. Why? Because houses aren't built in the sky. You see, houses are built on land, and it is one of the chief markers of ownership in this country, apart from passports, which is being grossly abused right now, more so under this administration than anywhere else. I think we may be setting a record on the amount of convictions and things that are going towards courts for abuse of our passport documents. And just like you see with drug trafficking, you know, when drug trafficking interdictions increase, you can imagine, we're talking about ownership and you be quiet. You can imagine how much is getting through the cracks and how much are not being called. So when you look at ownership in this country, there's land, but the only thing that transcends land also is ownership in terms of citizenship, which is also represented in our passport. And so the two comes hand in hand. And then when we look at the seconder of this bill, and she began to speak so eloquently about it, so much so that I try to keep track, unless you want me to read a copy of a speech. If you could pass it, I'll extract the pieces out of it that I found so appropriate. But she began to say, she said that it is about, speaking about land, says about unlocking the potential. It requires careful due diligence, proper title, thoughtful planning, and of course, responsible execution. And so there is not, this is not again an abstract concept in terms of getting the land. And she spoke so eloquently about the work and the diligence of them getting the land, even down to these same resolutions that we're speaking to, because as she said herself, the bedrock of housing is the land. The bedrock of housing is the land. And yet we see, out of the same mouth, they criticize the vision then of the Free National Movement, and now, building upon that work, the vision now, which is to build the houses on the land that is now available through our leader, Michael Pintard, who also understands the vision and the concept that Senator Alcides himself expressed. So I don't see why there's any doubt of 5,000 houses, because Senator Alcides already spoke for themselves about the prefabricated homes and many different type things you could do. And before we knock prefabrication, the comfort suites that sits up on Paradise Island right now that has endured numerous hurricanes right next to Atlantic was a prefabricated hotel. So right now with technology, unlike back in the days of the housing wars that was so exciting under Prime Minister Ingram and Prime Minister Christie, where every year they were boasting of who built the most homes, we realized, and definitely Prime Minister Ingram won it. And I like the fact of it because Prime Minister Christie has done well, but Prime Minister Ingram had exceeded him. The numbers prove that, statistics prove it. But the point still remains right now is because of the modern technology, it is beneath any senator in their right mind, and they are qualified educated people in here, to even imply that 5,000 houses is impossible in this day and time and climate. Senator Alcides spoke about looking at other places in jurisdiction. I don't recall if he gave a name, but I think he's also speaking about Caribbean nations in general, because we know we've been around. As the ambassador of CARICOM, we've seen how prefabricated homes have built homes and built whole communities. Literally, within a year, a whole community would be struggled with for over the past, 3 years you've been struggling with the regular way in which we've been building, which is a reality. Could be done within the smallest possible time, and it does not carry a lot of the drawbacks that we've been suffering in our home industry because of the advent of shingles and abuse and the poor inspection regimes. What it actually cost for us in this country was we ended up with a lot of homes being built, but a lot of them were subpar. People go inside their homes and there's cracking and unlevel this, and cabinets aren't properly fixed, and doors aren't in their proper state, prior to states and many other states. So you can run on with quantity. We want quality as well as quantity. And then the corruption factor is so high in the building of these homes that it gets so much so to the point that even firms, meaning lawyers and the average public person, Bahamian people, 75% of them, according to statistics, believe in order to get things done in terms of housing, in terms of permit, and in terms of getting registrations, you need to bribe 75% of law firms and housing firms, and also Bahamians believe that in order for us to be able to get simple things as permit and registrations, that you have to pay a bribe. And these are the things that we faced when we came into office, apart from COVID and Dorian and all the other different type things. So these were the things, the unsexy but necessity-driven foundational things that had to be addressed before we jump up on a political bandwagon and build houses on faulty ground. Yes, faulty ground, because there have been cases where there were government subdivisions built and they did not even fix the sinkholes. So houses was built on sinkholes that weren't even properly fixed, and houses were collapsing. We know the story. So what we decided to do as we began to fix the the Physical Planning Act, and as we began to strengthen the things in the Ministry of Public Works, as we began to talk with Bahamian people to find out that, listen here, we don't want just a government house, you want your house. So in other words, we're not trying to build a ghetto or a whole community with just one or two design houses and everybody else look the same apart from a color paint or something else in their yard. We wanted to find a way that people could get houses that they can call their own. But the foundations needed to be addressed, just as both these senators were saying, and the same foundation that even allowed this current administration to even begin their housing programs, which is questionable because many of them are public-private partnerships, which simply means that all the money going towards them are off books, so we don't have any real idea exactly the state of indebtedness that the country have. When they project in a surplus, the money on those housing projects ain't show up in our face yet. You know why? Because it's a public-private partnership. So when that money becomes due, what we're going to deal with? Just like with all the roads that we're dealing with now. Oh, listen here, oh, we on budget, we on task, we doing this. Yeah, you're broke. Not only you have $260-odd million worth of unpaid bills, the stuff that should have been showing up on the books as indebtedness for this country and obligation to this country is off the books because of PPPs. So we need to stop playing games with this matter of housing and look at the real issues. So first of all, as Senator Alcides and my dear senator said, that land was the critical thing. So while the program was being addressed to begin to move into housing, which was started, we needed to ensure that Bahamian people can get land in diverse areas, and land with good quality. It was so much so, as Senator Alcides said, that land being one of the greatest investments and what you have to go through and the costs associated with all the other fees and the stamp tax and everything else and other costs and taxes related to the land, when you think you qualify for it, you realize that your extent of your indebtedness is very, very high, that our program was so well designed that you saw that Bahamians were able to get land that valued $100,000 for $30,000, which means that they automatically had $70,000 worth of equity in the land from get-go. And if that was not good enough, we raised the homeowner exemption to $500,000 that you can get stamp tax exemption on building that home. That helps with the fees, definitely Senator Alcides and everything else. And if that was not good enough, with that same home, you could get the exemption on tax duties and other VAT-related taxes. Why? So that you can design your own homes and build it the way you want with the best help of the government. And if that was not good enough, you didn't have to go to an architect to just buy to pay for your plans, which could be an exorbitant cost in itself. There were myriads of completed and pre-approved plans that was vested in the Ministry of Public Works that you could have gone there and picked, choose, and refuse the design of your house instead of, as it was before, 2 or 3 designs, and all the hundreds of houses had the same designs in the same development. So yes, we made it possible for these same persons, the Bahamian people, to get the gateway, which all of you just admitted, which is the land. Which is the land. And as the senator before me said, again, without land, the pipeline to housing could not exist. You said that. Without land, the pipeline for housing could not exist. So without the work that we would have started doing, and you are continuing to do, there is no bedrock to build a house on. And I don't know about you, I believe in the saying in the Bible, only a foolish man builds a house upon sand. You need solid land to build it on. So let's stop this foolishness and playing games, because a house or home is the greatest investment that the average person would ever make. And it's not a game. I'll go even further. You know, we talk about government homes, and I'll take what the Minister of Housing said just recently in 2025. He said, and I quote, "There's no such thing as an affordable house." That's the problem we face. Because when we came in and we look at what the government houses are being sold for under the previous PRP administration, we adjudged that they were being overpriced by at least $50,000 to $60,000. So we endeavored to bring that price down for affordability. And even now, in your housing, you're saying, the minister saying, and I quote again, "There's no such thing as affordable housing." So what we try to do, we give you land. And that one transactions already give you enough equity that with the land that you would have got under the Free National Movement in our last term, with that one move, you already had enough equity in the land itself to go from land straight to house. And you had the tax exemptions and the duty exemptions as you go from land straight to house to be able to cushion all of those fees and taxes that Senator Alcides spoke about so rightfully and so truthfully. And then let's take another look at it. You want to see where more money come in? The reality is, from 2012 to now, it is interesting to note that rent and property taxes prices went up by 14%. So here it is, they give you a land for $30,000, that's worth $100,000, you get a $70,000 equity, and the value of the land has jumped. So now, the same move that the Free National Movement to give you the piece of the land, now is not only worth $70,000 in equity, it's probably back up to $100,000 in equity, and you may still only have associated with that equity $29,000 or $25,000 in debt. Man, our people ain't stupid. A deal is a deal. That's a very, very good deal. And then you get to build your dream house. And not only that, you get exemptions on your taxes. Not only the big boys, up to $500,000, any Bahamian, anyone could be able to qualify for that. Then we sit here and we look, after appreciating the fact that the rate of increase in housing has grown 7 times faster than the rate of wage increase. Yes, we started not a minimum wage. Yes, you increased minimum wage. But yes, housing and rental costs gone up 7 times more than wages. So it is a real thing. And every blow that we throw on any side of the table is very important to every single person. But boy, when the accounting is done right and the bill becomes due, because we are not showing it to the people up front with these PPPs, these public-private partnerships, we can see to the real extent of the indebtedness that is being done by the administration, which lack transparency. Prime Minister Davis is called brave, and I accept what you say, because I thought it was very brave when he stood up and he encouraged everybody recently on a rally stage, which so interestingly happened to be right next to some of the people who are greatly afflicted and needed his pronouncements to be real, right near Seabreeze, Beatrice Avenue, right there on the Seabreeze Park. And he began to speak so bravely, urging all the workers to say to stop giving citizens to run around and to process paperwork immediately. You know, when he stepped up and said, "Listen here, man, y'all need to get those papers moving. Move the files." But yet here it is, from my time in the Senate numerous times, and I give credit to the Attorney General, and I give credit to you, Madam President, for the latitude when I asked the Attorney General about it, and he stand the report because it's about the people's business, about those persons in Nassau Village and Pinewood Gardens who would have suffered that land incident related to Arawak homes where the government paid off the land incidents and trying to make these people whole. But yet to this day still, even though one side of the work has been done, my understanding is these people's land papers are still held up in inland revenue. Calculating things, but quite frankly, to my knowledge and my understanding, you can't equate tax on me till you transfer the land to me, so I know what's going on in the first place. So what you're holding up these people land and telling some of them, oh, we got to equate your real property tax for what? You don't say the land ain't mine. You say you're giving it back to me. You only sign it back to me, and I ain't signed to receive it yet because the paper ain't moving off the desk. So why are we getting bills for real property tax? And why is still sitting up in inland revenue when the hardest work has been done? I understand the land problem. I've traveled around with the former Prime Minister where we saw it all around the world. You've heard me say in this place over and over again. It's not a simple thing. We barely have surveyors in this place. Man, this place is suddenly getting so nice. Look at these, oh Lord, man, take the camera off me. Look at these beautiful children. Sorry, Madam President, look at these beautiful children. Look at these beautiful children. Look at these. Eva Hilton, Madam President. Man, you gotta give her, yeah. Oh Lord. Man, they come right here and put a smile on my, oh, let's be. Oh man, see, you know what, Madam President, I ready to take off my coat because I gotta go Roxanne and Zomo with the 12 Mamas group, scout group in Fox Hill. We gotta go fishing, sleeping on the rocks, and we gotta hang out with these children, man. Right now, see all this other stuff. I'm ready to go right now. See, this is just so beautiful. You know why? You know why, Madam President? You know why? Because honestly, this should be, and I do believe in my heart, I want to believe in my heart, this is the reason why adults clash. We all love our garden, our nursery, our heritage, which is our people, not the forts, which is our young people. We may differ on the way in which we want to get it done, but I would like to think that all of us, the end goal is for a better world, a better Bahamas for all of our young people. And this is why it aggravates me when we let our political subterfuge and spin cloud, in my opinion, what this upper house is supposed to be. Elder statesman, let's get a little bit above it. Let's give credit where credit is due. Everybody ain't always wrong, the same way no one ain't build a single house. That's a blatant lie. Now, if you want to say you ain't build enough, that's fine. The same way I could never stand here and say everything Prime Minister Davis does is wrong. I never use that kind of language. But we use blanket language that misrepresents, and at the end of the day, our people are none better off for appreciating the struggle that it really takes, even for the legislative body such as this, even for a government to do the things, even if it wants to do it. Because like a parent, and like to that of a child, we see what it takes to get things done. So as it relates to this, and the Posing Town is now being progressed, and that was a long time coming, Lord have mercy. Nassau Village, Pinewood Association, get those papers off that desk, man. And stop running on, but who owe taxes? Because anybody owe tax, they own the land, all right? And give them what has already been paid for by the taxpayers, and let's expedite that. So let's hold Prime Minister Davis to feet to the fire. And if the people under him ain't want to listen to him, then fire them too, and find people who want to listen to them. Get those papers off those desks and get these things moving. So I end with this, Madam President, so our young people can hear. It is very, very realistic what our leader, Michael Pintard, is saying as it relates to the homes. We have the capabilities right now, and even right now, Madam President, the legislation is in place. Right now, even now, Madam President, The public works policies are in place, and there are many things that we can do. We have the ability as a nation to have a boom in Airbnb because of prefabricated homes. We have a boom in providing housing for expatriate workers and also little cottages that Bahamians will be happy to live in and to celebrate. Oxuma don't have to have the housing shortages that it has during its special events and its gradas and its homecoming. Andros could be more swiftly developed. All we have to do is to put the infrastructure in the road, because right now with modern technology, constructing and building a home that is hurricane rated to meet the current types of hurricane we experience here right now is easily done. And it's able to be done in a way where Bahamian businesses can actually profit even though the homes may be prefabricated. We have better housing standard, better methodologies of building. All right, I've seen an idea from our leader that will increase the volume of qualified inspectors for housing. So when it's time to get that permit and that little and your other prerequisites for your development, you don't got to be paying nobody that little thing. So we can have the manpower in place to get your project moving on time. These things are what is important to us as a nation. So I stand in support of this bill. I stand in support of the vision of my leader, Michael Pintard, who I am confident will win the next upcoming general election. And I thank this current Prime Minister for continuing the process of what has been done. And I again nudge in his absence the Attorney General to get on it again to ensure that the papers are moved off the desk and the homeowners who have suffered loss are made whole. With that, Madam President, I rest with the hope that I won't hear any more unnecessary spin propaganda and possible foolishness about no housing, no housing, no housing, no housing. But realize honestly that the work of land in this country, Madam President, and I say this seriously, the work of land is serious. It's too serious. They've been thieving land in this country for too long. People, commonage land need to be given clear title. Generational property needs to be given clear title, because when we can get the land, legally into the hands of Bahamians, we get wealth in the hands of Bahamians. And I will quote 1 million in closing. When Bahamians have possession of their land, then the wealth becomes more common.
Thank you, Senator the Honorable Reuben Raming, for your contribution. As many, the chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Tyrell Young. Senator Young, you have the floor.
Good morning again. Thank you, Madam President. And good morning, colleagues. I listened to my colleague, Reuben Ramin, and I have one thing to say. Sorry, the Honorable Senator Reuben Ramin, my good learned colleague, a man of the cloth. I have one thing to say to remind the Bahamian people. In this coming election, the F&M thrives on doom and gloom. Everything you hear from the F&M side is doom and gloom. I remind you of one thing. Remember this one thing, Bahamians. When you go to the polls this election, remember this. 2017 to 2021 under the F&M, your choice will be clear at the polls when you think about your time during that period in this country. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Madam President, before I begin, I wish to take a moment to say happy birthday to my father, Gary Young. Happy birthday, Daddy. Today, as we reflect on family, legacy, and opportunity, I am especially mindful of the man who shaped my life. My father is more than a parent, Madam President. He is my earthly hero, my guide, and my model for service, integrity, and perseverance. Madam President, for him, I learned the value of hard work, the importance of giving back, and that dignity comes from creating opportunities not for oneself, but for others. He gifted me and my siblings land in New Providence and Eleuthera, not for his own benefit, but to ensure that future generations of his family would have security, hope, and opportunity. Over the years, he has faced many challenges and complex issues around land ownership, navigating legal hurdles and disputes with patience and determination. Watching him confront these challenges instilled in me a deep appreciation for the value of land, not just as property, but as a foundation for family, for community, and for the dreams of every Bahamian. Madam President, I know that a Bahamian like him will look upon this resolution with pride. He would recognize, as I do, that it creates clarity, certainty, and opportunity for others in our nation. Just as he sought to provide for his own children, my father's life and values remind me why public service is a sacred trust and why we must always act in ways that uplift the people that we serve. Madam President, I rise today to speak in full support of the resolution before this honorable chamber. At first glance, this resolution may appear to be just a technical matter. The acquisition and transfer of title of over 70 acres of land collectively in New Providence and Exuma to the minister responsible for housing for a nominal sum, but make no mistake, this is about much more than land. It is about people. It is about opportunities. It is about giving Bahamians a fair chance to build a better life in the country that they call home. The land in New Providence under this resolution will serve as a critical purpose. It allows the issuance of clear title to landowners in that era, providing legal recognition and security to families who have long awaited it. This is more than paper. This is peace of mind. This is dignity. This is the assurance that the home you have worked for and lived in for years is truly, truly yours. Meanwhile, the land in Exuma will be used for government housing development, creating affordable homes for low and middle income Bahamians. These are the families who work hard every day, contribute to the life of our nation, and deserve the opportunity to own a home of their own. And Madam President, housing is far more than walls and roof. Housing is stability. Housing is security. Housing is dignity, is that foundation upon which families grow, communities thrive, and generations prosper. The transfer of this land is not about monetary value of acres. It is about the value of impact, the impact on the lives of ordinary Bahamians who long for a fair chance to succeed. Madam President, I speak often to the Minister of Housing and to everyday Bahamians who contact me trying to find out what is the process of obtaining a government low-cost home. Madam President, for the first time in many years, under this administration with its aggressive housing program, I could honestly say that many Bahamians are very hopeful that now they have that opportunity finally to obtain a government home or a home of their own in this country. And that is only because this administration, this Davis-led administration, made it priority to ensure that we build as many homes as we could possibly build in the shortest time and with the greatest integrity, the greatest architectural works, to ensure that Bahamians are able to get in homes that they own under the lowest cost possible. Madam President, the impact on lives of ordinary Bahamians who long for a fair chance to succeed through the power of the Housing Act, this land now has the potential to provide both clarity of ownership in New Providence and new affordable homes in Exuma. It is an investment in people, in community, and in the future of our nation. Madam President, this resolution reflects the core of why we serve in this honorable chamber. Over the past 4 years in this chamber, I have sought to advocate for economic empowerment, family island development, and policies that strengthen opportunity and resilience. Today, this resolution embodies those same values. Development must be inclusive. Progress must reach the many, not just the few. Let us be clear, Madam President, the former F&M administration never built a single home for many, many Bahamians during their last term in office.
Senator, what is your point?
He is
Please state. What's the point of order?
he is blatantly misleading, and I am refuting what he is saying and ask him to prove categorically that a single home was built under the Free National Movement, and until he could actually prove that, because we're sick and tired of it, he needs to withdraw that. Or he needs to not. That is not so.
I got it.
Senator, speak to the chair, please.
Yeah.
Senator Young?
Madam President, it's not my job to prove it, but it's his job to confirm that the information that I provide is not true. The information that I provide is based on facts. Not a single home under the former F&M administration was built in the Bahamas.
Madam.
But he is,
Madam President,
Senator Young,
Madam.
Senator Raming,
Madam.
he is categorically stating his belief, right? So now, are you denying what he's saying?
I am denying even his belief.
Okay, then
And
what
if he's
is
willing to-
your support?
No, you could believe.
No.
The same
So
way
then,
some people believe.
so then if you
some
are
people believe
Senator Raming,
that non-Bahamians are entitled to passport, but I don't believe that.
Senator Raming,
He cannot establish that.
Senator
He cannot
Raming.
establish that.
Senator Raming, if you are denying it, do you wish to establish the homes that were built?
Listen, he that asserts under the rules must prove, as you well know. He's asserting, I am denying, now he needs to prove it. That's exactly how the rules of this place go. That's exactly how these rules go. Now, until he is willing to prove what he is asserting, the burden is on him
I
to
don't-
prove what he said, and it must be withdrawn until he's done. The rules of this place is that if he asserts, he must prove.
Oh no, that I don't remember seeing that rule.
I have checked
Sen-
that
Senator
rule
Young.
in this place and the lower and
Senator
the upper
Young.
house.
yes, Madam President. Madam President,
No, but you refute.
Madam President.
Senator Young.
I did. That's why
Senator Young.
I refute the matter. I didn't just object. I told him I refuted, and now he has to prove because he's asserting. If I just stood up and said I object, that's one thing, but I'm saying that he is wrong.
Are you done?
Now he must prove
Are you
that
done?
he is right because he's asserting. I'm not asserting,
Madam President.
and I'm sick of it. Refute it and shut me up.
We are sick of your many of your accusations.
Senator Young.
Go ahead, Madam President. listening.
With respect to the homes built by the, with respect to the 0 homes being built by the opposition, do you have any evidence to
Madam President,
substantiate that?
Madam President, based on information at the Ministry of Works, there are no complete home plans that were approved and built with all inspections completed under the former administration during 2017 and 2021 under the F&M. And I stand by it because it is public record. It is public record.
Senator Ramming, allow the chair to deal with this matter, please. Senator Young, do you have
Madam
something to
President,
table
what I will do,
for us to say?
I'll tell you what I'll do, Madam President. I withdraw it. It is my opinion. It is my personal opinion that under the information that I have researched, there were no homes built. Not a single home was built under the F&M.
I'll deal with it.
And that is, it is my opinion.
Senator
Based on the information received, there's no record. There is no record.
Senators,
There's no record. That's the reason why you can't prove it. No, that's the reason why you can't prove it. Because there was no home built. It's that simple. It's that simple. You cannot. 4 years we've been asking you to prove where you built a home. And not one time you could present that you actually built a home.
Senators,
Bring the evidence. Bring the evidence. I stand by my opinion. I stand by my opinion.
order, senators, order. 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 Now, senators, we've come a long way. And clearly we're in closing moments. And we know what the rules state, and we ought to conduct ourselves with a certain level of decorum, right? Now, Senator Young has withdrawn his originally stated statement, and he said that this is now his opinion, right? And if that is his opinion, we cannot.
If they were elected. Promises without actions are empty. The people deserve results, not rhetoric. They deserve leadership who will take action, who will deliver, and who will make on their commitments, Madam President. And the record of the PLP Davis-led administration speaks for itself. In just 4 short years, this government has built many, many homes across the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. From New Providence to the Family Islands, we have delivered housing that transforms lives, strengthens communities, and gives Bahamians the security and dignity of their own home. That is leadership, Madam President. That is service. That is action, not promises like the F&M. I also wish to take a moment to express my sincere gratitude to the Prime Minister, the Honorable Philip Davis, for entrusting me with the honor to serve in this honorable Senate. Leadership is built on trust, Madam President, and I remain forever thankful for the opportunity to serve as Senator. I thank my colleagues on both sides, even my good colleague, the Honorable Reuben Ramming of this chamber. Our debates have been spirited, very spirited, just like today, same as others, but always necessary because democracy thrives on engagement, on dialogue, and on the courage to speak up for what is right. Madam President, the Bahamian people, I say thank you. Thank you for your encouragement, your honest feedback, and your constant reminder that public service is a responsibility, not a privilege. Madam President, I speak also as a husband, a son, and a friend to my wife, Lisa, whose unwavering support has carried me through every challenge. I am deeply grateful to my family and friends. Thank you for your prayers, your guidance, and your encouragement along this journey. To the people of the great island of Long Island, the most beautiful island in our chain of islands, I remain profoundly grateful. Your conversations, your support, and your perspectives have shaped me in ways that go far beyond politics. You have reminded me that what true service means. Honorable Senators, as we approach another general election, if this is my final contribution in this chamber, let it be one that stands firmly on the side of the Bahamian people. Because long after the debates have ended, long after the votes are counted, what will matter most is whether we use our time here to create real opportunity for families to secure their homes, for communities to thrive, and for citizens to live with dignity. Today, through this resolution, we take a step in that direction by providing clarity of ownership in the Providence, by creating affordable housing in Exuma, and by giving hope and opportunity to Bahamians across our country. I came here to serve, and I leave here with that same commitment in my heart. I will continue to stand for the people, for their future, and for a Bahamas where every citizen has a fair chance to succeed. May God continue to bless this Honorable Senate, and may God continue to bless the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Young. As many.
I don't know what's going on.
Senator Nicole Martin.
Give me this first one. Good. That might be all I need.
Senator Martin, the chair is recognized.
Good morning, good afternoon, Madam President. I would first like to, on my maiden voyage, maiden speech, I am patently aware that this can be hello and goodbye. And so I would want to, first of all, give God thanks for the opportunity to serve, whatever the brevity. It is a privilege to serve at this level. I would like to thank my party leader, the Honorable Michael Pintard, and the Free National Movement for allowing me this opportunity. Madam President, when I received when I received the instrument of appointment, I neglected to acknowledge my children, Tara, Casey, and Coy. I refer to them as my kit of children. They are the reason I am who I am. They are the why in my mornings, in my evenings. And I love you all. To my grandchildren, it's about 5 of them. Yeah, young girl. Yes, 5 grandchildren. This is not a matter of just Nicole standing here. I represent some things. I represent the Nassau Village community, not just the constituency, but the community of Nassau Village. As I stand to contribute to these bills that predominantly deal with housing and land, I'm aware that Nassau Village is at the center of land issues, unresolved land issues. Issues that, I mean, if we can remember the way in which members of the Nassau Village community were treated with respect to land issues, this is not a light matter. This is a matter that goes to the heart of what people work for every day. And certainly we support this resolution. But it would, before I continue, Madam President, I'd like to express condolences to my colleague, Ms. Indira, Dr. Indira Adderley, on the passing of her father, Mr. Robert Dames. May his soul rest in peace and rise in glory. Now, I promised my trade union colleagues that they would feature prominently in my initial contribution. I did not know that my contribution initially would have been on a land issue and access to land. But interestingly, as was mentioned by senators who've presented, the ownership of land and housing represents stability and dignity. But unemployed people cannot get it. Underemployed people cannot get it. So the trade union movement represent workers, which is the foundation of qualifying for home ownership or land ownership. The trade union movement over the past 4 years, and a lot has been said about what the F&M did or did not do between 2017 and 2021. Well, I submit to you that the voters of the country paid the Free National Movement in 2021 for the work that they did or did not do. So they fired us. So to rely on anything that was not done as validation or vitiation of some things that you should have done as the government cannot stand. Cannot, will not. The trade union movement, the trade union movement has had its share of issues with this government. Up to yesterday, there were workers, government workers, standing outside crying for what is due to them. Madam President, UB, quasi, it is connected. Madam President, when I hear that there is so much boasting about having signed 61 industrial agreements, I would say to you that those industrial agreements represent, the signing of those agreements represent the beginning of the work. It represents the foundation of the work. So if you sign them, whoop-de-doo. The government signed in the capacity as, in some cases, employer, in other cases, as the agency that must register those agreements. Those agreements contain articles, provisions that we agreed to live by. So if workers are not being paid pursuant to any of the 61 industrial agreements that were signed, then there is an issue. With respect to this land issue, and Minister Halkitis mentioned that there were some portions of the land are vacant in, I think, Bozine, in the pit. They are vacant, which means that there is opportunity for persons to acquire them. Those persons would have to be employed. The employment issues have not gone away simply because this matter is now being resolved. There are hotel workers, there are government workers, there are unionized workers and ununionized workers who, if employment conditions are not where they need to be, they will not qualify. They will not be able to reap the benefit or the harvest of this particular resolution, these resolutions. Madam President and Senators, While this is honorable, it is not something I believe that anyone can oppose because it represents a step in the right direction. It, however, does not represent a completeness of the picture. Our leader, the Honorable Mr. Michael Pintard, did say that we will build 5,000 homes. I don't know that there's anything wrong in that being said. It's not ambitious. It is ambitious. It's not unrealistic. With respect to what we can now look forward to, I'm excited because every election gives you a new hope. It gives you hope that you can rid yourself of some things you don't like and hope that you can bring in. And it is my hope that the people of the Bahamas elect the Free National Movement. I want 41 seats. We know we can't get 41, but we would like it. But it represents a hope that the things that were not done as we would have liked them to be done, have been done in the past, there is hope for correction. Madam President, I support this bill. I support the way in which we are moving in this moment with these resolutions to fix. But for the Nassau Village constituency, for those members who are still waiting to have their titles conveyed so that they are able to stand proudly in the fact that they are homeowners, property owners. We ask that the government please move swiftly before the bell ring. Before the bell ring, and if after the bell ring, at least do some things so that those members of the country, of the Nassau Village constituency can have, they can have their day. So having said that, I give God thanks. I thank each of you senators for your guidance, for your direction, and I thank the Free National Movement. May God continue to bless our country, and may he bless each and every one of you senators.
Thank you, Senator Nicole Martin. As many, the chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Ronald Duncombe. Senator Duncombe, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Good afternoon, Madam President, and good afternoon, my fellow colleagues. It's always a blessing for me to stand up in this place, Madam President. But before I get started and speak on my contribution and my support of such a tremendous group of resolutions, I want to speak directly towards the future of our nation. And just to inform the nation that on March 7th, entry 4 of the Next Gen Mentorship Program officially commenced. And just to be reminded that this program is grounded in discipline, leadership, and its purpose and is committed to shaping the next generation of young men in the Bahamas. And this particular entry is, you say every entry has been unique, but this one in particularly it's going to be very, very important for this country because we have selected 12 outstanding young men who I can say I'm so proud to be affiliated with at this time. Collectively, they have an average GPA of 3.75. Yes, I'm telling you. And it's only fitting for me to mention their name. DeMarco Wells from C.B. Bethel Senior High. Michael Francis, International School of Business. Danico Stewart, R. Bailey Senior High School. Brendan Fernanda, D.W. Davis Junior High School. Calvin Cummings, C.R. Walker Senior High School. Omari O. Pinder, Noble Proprietary Academy. Kristen Bethel, S.C. McFerguson Junior High School. Fisk Burrows, Aquinas College. Dion Walking Jr., Government High School. Takarzi Thompson, Blake Academy. Chikorzi Knowles, St. Anne's, Matthias Ferguson, Freedom Baptist Academy. Madam President, these young men are a reflection of work that's continued across this country, and we hope to guide, support, and prepare these young men for their responsibility not only into adulthood and leadership, but as leading men within our country. The reality, Madam President, is that many of our young men are navigating a world that demands direction, discipline, and opportunity. And programs like the Next Gen Young Men exist to help bridge that gap. Through mentorship, structure, and exposure, we are not only building confidence, but cultivating character, accountability, and vision. So while we may be a small part of a much larger national effort, we are proud at NextGen to do our part in supporting and shaping the next generation of Bahamian men. So as we turn to the matter of the bill before us in this honorable chamber, we are reminded that nation building does not happen in isolation. It is shaped both by how we develop our people and how we steward our resources. So today, we are called to consider resolutions that sit at the intersection of both. Because access to land and ultimately access to home ownership is not merely a policy issue. It is a defining element of stability, dignity, and opportunity for Bahamian families. Madam President, land has always held a deeper meaning in the story of our nation. It's not simply a space, it is identity, it's security. It is the foundation upon which families are built and future are secured. So for generations, Bahamians have worked with the hope that one day they would own a piece of this country they call home, not only to live, but to build, to pass on, and to create something lasting. And so when we speak about land in this content, we are not speaking about parcels of lands and plans alone, Madam President. We are speaking about access, about fairness, and about whether opportunity is truly within the reach of the average Bahamian. The responsibility before us, therefore, is simply not about administrative. It is deeply important. It requires us to ensure that the resources entrusted to the state are used in a way that reflects the needs of the people, particularly those who continue to face the barriers to home ownership despite their efforts. Because the reality is simply clear, Madam President. For many Bahamians, the part of owning a home has become increasingly difficult, shaped by rising cost, limited access, and simply supply that has not kept the pace with the demand. And it is within that reality that these resolutions must be understood. Access. It is important to acknowledge that these resolutions reflect not only forward planning, but a response to a long-standing realities on the ground. As indicated by the Minister for Housing, the objective is clear: to place these lands under the authority of the ministry so that they can properly developed, regularized, and made available for the benefit of all Bahamian families. In the case of Pitt Road, this effort goes beyond new development. It speaks to regularization of a historic community built over time by hard-working Bahamians. Families who have occupied that land for years without any formal subdivision or clear title, and therefore without the legal security they deserve. This initiative, therefore, is not about displacement, but about support, about bringing order, structure, and certainty to those communities while improving infrastructure and catering and creating safer, more sustainable living environments. And in Exuma, Madam President, while we see the forward-looking side of this strategy, with plans to develop a structured, multi-phase residential community across more than 60 acres of land, expected to yield over 200 residential lots that represents more than numbers. It represents access. It represents opportunity. It represents the ability for hundreds of Bahamian families to move from aspiration to ownership, and from ownership to generational security. Again, Madam President, I want to acknowledge the progress that this government has made across this country through a number of targeted housing developments aimed at expanding access and creating opportunities for Bahamian families. We're more than just throwing random numbers, 5,000, 10,000, whatever thousand that sounds good. We're about having a track record, because a track record is irrefutable. In New Providence, projects such as Industrial Gardens subdivisions, the Renaissance development, the continued expansion of Pinecrest subdivision, phase 2, and developments such as Windspin Meadows reflect ongoing efforts to increase housing supplies and expand access to ownership, while also making clear that continued action is necessary to meet the growing demand facing by Bahamian families. Beyond the capital, the government is also witnessing meaningful activities across the Family Islands. In Exuma, the development of Ocean Hole Estates is aimed at providing affordable housing opportunities within a growing community. In San Salvador, a rent-to-own housing program is nearing completion, offering a practical and accessible pathway to home ownership for residents. In Andros, areas such as Mangrove Bush are being positioned for new housing expansion, while in Grand Bahama, the Garden Villas redevelopment represents a critical urban renewal effort, moving from demolition towards rebuilding and restoration. These developments, Madam President, they demonstrate intent. They reflect progress, but they also underscore the scale of the work still ahead. Because when we measure against the demand, it's clear that we remain in a position where supply is struggling to keep up with the pace. Because behind every figure or data or stats, Madam President, is a story. A young couple trying to move from rent to ownership, a single mother working 2 jobs, hoping to give her children not just a house, but a place they can truly call home, Madam President. A family that has done everything right, yet still finds the door to ownership just out of reach. And this moment calls on us not only to act, but to act with urgency, with intention, and with clear understanding that we do what we do here to understand that it's real consequences and it affects people's real lives, Madam President. So when we expand access to land, we do more than just build houses. We restore hope, we strengthen communities, and we affirm the belief that in this country, with hard work and the right opportunity, every Bahamian deserves a place to stand, to build, and to belong. Housing is not a single-step solution. It is a process that requires land identification, acquisition, planning, infrastructure, development, financing, and ultimately construction. But the biggest point is execution. Because again, we could stand up and call numbers, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000. Execution is the key, Madam President. What we are seeing through these resolutions is not an action, but progression. A deliberate and structured effort to move land into the position so that development can occur at scale. There may be questions about fairness and transparency on the other side, or whether these opportunities will truly reach the Bahamians who need them the most. And that is precisely why these resolutions are so important. By placing these lands under the clear authority of the ministry responsible for housing, we establish a structured and accountable pathway for both development and allocation. The focus must remain on ensuring that access is equitable and that the outcomes reflect the true intent of these measures. But we cannot delay progress out of fear of imperfection. Instead, we must move forward with purpose while maintaining oversight, strengthening our systems, and holding our accountable to the people who we serve. And so, Madam President, we must look forward to the continued progress that's being done by this government. So when we consider these resolutions, we must not see them in isolation, but as a part of a broader and ongoing national effort to expand access to land, housing, and opportunity for all Bahamians. And so for these reasons, Madam President, I commend these resolutions to this Honorable Senate and to the continued advancement of housing opportunities for the Bahamian people, and I support these resolutions. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Honorable Ronald Duncombe, for your contribution. As many, the chair recognizes Senator Honorable Michael Barnett Ellis.
Good afternoon, Madam President. Today we're debating a compendium of resolutions dealing with the conveyance of land to the minister responsible for housing. But I'm going to focus my contribution on the resolution concerning Pitt Road because it raises questions that go far beyond a single community. This resolution is framed as a response to a real and long-standing need. The government has compulsorily acquired land that is currently occupied with the stated intention of making it available to persons of low and middle income. And let's be honest about the implication. The implication is that the individuals currently occupying the land do not have formal legal title. The hope, one would assume, is that this acquisition is a step forward toward regularizing their ownership. If that is the objective, then that is an objective we can all support. But this is not just a Pitt Road issue. This is a Gambia, this is a Baintown, this is a Grantstown, this is a Malcolm Allotments, this is a Pinewood, this is a Nassau Village. It's playing out in communities all across our family islands as well. So let us be clear, the problem is real. But the question is not whether the problem exists. The question is why this approach and why now? Because just over 6 months ago, in this very chamber, we debated and passed with significant praise the Land Registration Act and the Land Adjudication Act. Modern, comprehensive, and long overdue. Legislation specifically designed to address this exact problem. The legislation that created structured, transparent, and accessible process for determining rightful ownership where there are competing interests in land. Legislation that was meant to take these situations out of uncertainty into order. And yet, those acts have not been brought into force. They have not been operationalized, they have not been implemented, and they are not available to the Bahamian people. So I ask again, if we already passed framework to resolve land ownership issues fairly and systematically, why are we now resorting to compulsory acquisition? Why bypass the very system this Parliament unanimously supported? Even I supported it. Why abandon a transparent, rules-based process in favor of an ad hoc intervention? The question becomes even more pressing when we consider timing. This is not a new issue. The occupancy of that land did not begin last month, and it did not begin last year. This administration has had 4 years to address this matter, 4 years to regularize the title, 4 years to implement legislation they celebrated, and yet nothing. No action, no implementation until now. So again, why the rush? Why now? Why in this way? The Bahamian people are not naive. They understand timing. They understand the proximity to elections. They understand when action feels less like policy and more like inducement. Because if the effect of this resolution is to confirm land or a pathway to ownership to occupants in a specific constituency on the eve of an election, then that raises a very serious concern. A concern that we may be stepping into territory contemplated by the Parliamentary Elections Act. A concern that public resources and legislative mechanisms are being used in a way that could influence electoral support. And if that is even a question, then this chamber must tread carefully, because these houses are not tools of inducement. They are institutions of governance. But unfortunately, this pattern is not isolated. We've seen it before. Legislation passed with great fanfare, then left sitting, waiting. It wasn't just the Land Registration Act and the Land Adjudication Act. It's also the Ombudsman Act and the Protected Disclosures Act and the Independent Commission of Investigations Act. All mechanisms of accountability, all promised to the Bahamian people, all delayed. Because accountability delayed is accountability denied. And this is the same administration that took 18 months to begin complying with public procurement legislation. This is the same administration that resists transparency until transparency becomes politically convenient. And when the motivation appears, when an election is on the horizon, we suddenly see movement. Suddenly roads are being paved. Suddenly sidewalks that are perfectly functional are being ripped up and redone. And so those of you traveling on West Bay Street today, they've now hit the sidewalks in front of Rubis, so avoid the area. Suddenly, VAT relief appears just weeks before an election from the very same government that placed VAT on those items in the first place. This underscores why we are seeking, we know. This underscores why we are seeking full transparency regarding the proposed acquisition of the Grand Bahama Company. Because this administration and its PLP predecessors have eroded public trust time and time again. Madam President, the Bahamian people are watching. They are asking a simple question. If they can act now, why did you not act before? If you had the tools, why did you not use them? If you cared about regularizing land ownership, why did you not bring into force the Land Registration and Land Adjudication Act? Because the truth is this: good governance is not about last-minute gestures. It's about consistent, principled action. It's about building systems that are fair, transparent, and accessible to all, not selective interventions when a political clock is ticking. The Land Registration Act and the Land Adjudication Act represent exactly that kind of system. They're not perfect, but they're purposeful. They recognize that land disputes are complex, that there are competing interests, that justice requires process and not shortcuts, and that Bahamians deserve clarity and not uncertainty. So I say this: if the government is serious about helping people in the pit road, then bring the legislation into force. Use the system you told the Bahamian people would fix the problem. Apply it not just to one constituency, but across the country, because Gambia deserves it too. And every other community facing the same struggles deserve it as well. But do not come here now, after years of inaction, and ask us to accept urgency without explanation. Do not ask us to ignore the timing, and do not ask us to ignore the pattern. Because governments must be bigger than politics. and policy must not become a tool for persuasion. Madam President, I support the objective of regularizing land ownership for Bahamians who have long lived in uncertainty. But I cannot support a process that raises more questions than it answers, a process that sidesteps the very framework this Parliament endorsed, and the process whose timing invites legitimate concern. The Bahamian people deserve better than fanfare without follow-through. They deserve action that is timely, transparent, and fair, not action that only arises when it is politically convenient. Madam President, the development of a nation is not the work of one person or one generation. It is a relay. Each of us is called to run our leg with discipline, with integrity, with purpose, and then to pass the baton forward, not to hold on to it, not to delay the next runner, but to ensure that when they pass it, the country is stronger, more stable, and better prepared for what lies ahead. That's how nations grow, and that's how progress is sustained. I firmly believe that it is time for the next generation of leaders to take the reins, to build upon the work of those who came before us, our parents, our grandparents, who laid the foundation on which we now stand. And we, in turn, must do our part, which includes ensuring that we are registered, engaged, and that we exercise our right to vote, so that our children and grandchildren will not feel the need to leave, but will choose to build their lives here, to invest their talents here, to contribute to the continued development and leadership of this great nation. Madam President, I wish to extend my sincere gratitude to the Leader of the Opposition for the opportunity to serve in this honorable House. An opportunity that was so important that I made the deliberate decision to renounce my Canadian citizenship in order to answer the call to contribute to the development of our country and to do so in this chamber. It has been an absolute privilege to serve, and I remain committed to doing my part, to run my leg of the race, and when the time comes, pass the baton forward in a way that strengthens this nation we all love. It has been a pleasure to serve with this cohort, all versions of it. We have had heated debates, but we have built long-term relationships. We're still waiting for Senator Halkitis to take us fishing with him, and we now know that Senator Major will eventually serenade us. And Madam President, thank you for protecting us. May God bless us all as we strive to make this land of perpetual sunshine a better Bahamas.
Thank you, Senator the Honorable Michael Bonnet Ellis, for your contribution. As many. The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Kirkland Russell.
Thank you. I thought I was going to make you open mouth again. Madam President, thank you for allowing me this opportunity. It is indeed a pleasure to be back in this honorable place. I listened to my colleagues, and everyone sounds so sentimental. I don't know what is going on, soldier. But it looked like it looked like this is the time, like when we playing domino, they tell you, hold your man. And so, let me see how best I could hold my man. I am truly grateful for all my many blessings, especially my family, friends, and this opportunity to serve the people of the Bahamas in this capacity, along such wonderful colleagues. Madam President, I'm grateful to our courageous, hardworking, and compassionate Prime Minister, the Honorable Philip Brave Edward Davis, KC, provided me this prestigious opportunity to serve as a senator in his administration. Madam President, I thank the people of Grand Bahama, especially those of my hometown communities, Hunters, Marktown, Lewis Yard, and Pindis Point, and no doubt my church family of St. Vincent de Paul for their continual prayers and support. Madam President, today I rise in full support of these resolutions. However, allow me to begin with the transfer of Crown land to the Ministry of Housing for the purpose of constructing homes for Bahamian families, a purpose that strikes at the very heart of nation building. Housing is more than the four walls, the concrete, the wood or furniture. And this compassionate government understands that owning a home is about dignity. It is about security. It is about giving Bahamians a fair chance at stability, wealth creation, and generational advancement. Madam President, as far back as the days of the late Sir Lyndon Oscar Pinlin governments, successive governments have recognized the critical need to provide housing opportunities for Bahamian families. However, the Bahamian public should never forget that the side opposite while in office last did not build one home for a Bahamian family. I repeat that. While in office last, the side opposite did not build one single home for a Bahamian family. Madam President, the reality is that too many Bahamians have been locked out of home ownership. Rising construction costs, limited access to land, and inaction under the previous administration, creating backlogs that left thousands waiting, not for luxury, but for opportunity. But today, Madam President, this brave administration is demonstrating decisive action. Since taking office, the Davis administration has advanced a clear and aggressive housing agenda. Through the Ministry of Housing, we have moved beyond talk into a very tangible delivery, not just of housing, but of subdivisions. The government has committed to the development of thousands of affordable houses across New Providence, Grand Bahama, Abaco, and the Family Islands. New subdivisions are being actively planned and rolled out, supported by infrastructure investments to secure these are not just stand-alone houses, but sustainable communities. And critically, Madam President, this resolution is part of that larger, coordinated strategy, because without land, there can be no homes. Now, let us be clear about the contrast. The fact is, unlike the F&M, who built no house, this administration has brought urgency, coordination, and execution to the housing sector. We are not managing the problem, we are solving it. Young families are not receiving a promise note, they are receiving their keys to a house they can call a home. Madam President, these resolutions are not a routine administrative act. What I'm getting at, I believe that these resolutions are declarations of intent. They signal that this government understands that land ownership and home ownership are fundamental pillars of economic empowerment. When Bahamian families receive the keys to their home, they are not just receiving shelter, they are gaining an asset, a stake in this country, and a legacy to pass on to their next generation. This is how we expand the middle class. This is how we strengthen communities. And this is how we build on progress for a stronger Bahamas. So today, as we debate this resolution, let us recognize that we are not simply approving the transfer of land. We are unlocking opportunities, restoring hope, and laying the foundation for a more inclusive and prosperous future for Bahamians. I support these land resolutions fully. Madam President, on the island of Grand Bahama, one of the key factors negatively impacting home owners as well as businesses is the high cost of power. That is why I am compelled to say a little something in strong support of the government's effort to acquire the Grand Bahama Power Company, an action that goes to the very heart of my island's economic recovery, investors' confidence, affordability, national development, and most of all, fairness for the homeowners and people of Grand Bahama. Madam President, let me be clear. For years, Grand Bahamians have been held back, not by lack of potential, but by structural constraints. Chief among them is high energy costs. Madam President, this brave administration is resolved in national energy reform, and Grand Bahama must be a part of it. This PLP government has consistently chosen to reject the status quo and to choose to stand up for Bahamians and build on progress. Madam President, yesterday in that other place, Prime Minister the Honorable Philip Edward Davis moved a resolution to secure some $280 million to acquire the Grand Bahama Power Company. This brave move demonstrates courage and the will to ensure that public policy will finally address the burden that Grand Bahamians has been carrying for years. Let's look at the facts, Madam President. Every month when Grand Bahama residents and business owners open their power bills, they are forced to carry the burden of a system that has left them paying more for electricity than people across the rest of the country. Madam President, please allow me to outline a few figures. For residential consumers using 351 to 800 kilowatt hours, BPL charges a base rate of 11.95 cents per kilowatt hour. In my hometown, in Grand Bahama, the comparable base rate is 27.87 cents per kilowatt hour, almost double, Madam President. That's a small home. For a middle-sized home, and a little bigger home, you're talking about usage above 800 kilowatt hours. BPL here in Nassau and across the rest of the Family Island charges 14.95 cents. In my hometown, Grand Bahama, the Grand Bahama Power Company charges 27.31 cents. Again, almost double. A family in Grand Bahama can end up paying anywhere from about $700–800 per year in additional charges than a similar family in New Providence. And that is before fuel and storm recovery charges are even added. Madam President, I was kind of knocked back yesterday while watching the two FNM members of Parliament from Marcos City and East Grand Bahama, both who live in Grand Bahama, who both suggested that the government should defer the process for what I consider one trivial reason after the other. It made me to question, who are they working for now? And who they will work for in the future? Questions voters of Grand Bahama must continue to ask. Madam President, when you gaze across the country, one can easily see how BPL has been modernizing grids. They are integrating solar and storage, improving resilience, reducing outages, improving reliability, moving forward to a more efficient and diversified system, and doing all of this, Madam President, while reducing costs to the customers. Madam President, the action by the government yesterday shows clearly that Grand Bahama can benefit from that experience in resilience, reliability, fuel diversification, efficiency, affordability, and long-term planning. Madam President, some may ask the question, why now? Well, I'll tell you why now. Residents and businesses on Grand Bahama endure some of the highest electricity costs, not just in the Bahamas, but indeed the region, often exceeding 30 to 40 cents per kilowatt hours, talking about businesses. Light bills in Grand Bahama sometimes, soldier, represent a second mortgage. Businesses have struggled under the high cost and unpredictable energy bills. Madam President, this Davis administration have taken the approach of investing in airports, roads, critical infrastructure, advancing housing initiative, strengthening and building hospitals and clinics while improving healthcare systems, and now moving boldly to address energy, the very foundation of economic growth. Madam President, unlike the previous administration, who managed a decline in almost every sector, this brave administration is engineering recovery and revitalization of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Madam President, Understanding that energy is the foundation that is necessary to expand the economy, housing, tourism, and affordability, the government is positioning Grand Bahama for a successful future. In addition, the more than $3 billion in investment that is happening now on Grand Bahama is another demonstration of what this brave administration have been hard at work doing. Grand Bahama is being rescued, recovering, and is moving in the direction of full revitalization. Madam President, choose progress. Madam President, the people of Grand Bahama ought to remember that the former administration had five seats in Grand Bahama. The Deputy Prime Minister, they also had a Governor General from Grand Bahama, a Minister of Finance, and 2 additional cabinet ministers, including the current leader of the FNM. And they did nothing to help the people of Grand Bahama. But today, Celebration Key is completed. The new hospital is being constructed. The airport deal is completed and contracts has already been signed with local contractors to commence work immediately. The more than $500 million expansion on the shipyard is nearing completion. The first phase of UB North is completed, with classes carrying on while phase 2 is nearing completion. Downtown Freeport has been revitalized. Construction of homes and businesses are at an all-time high. Deals have been completed with Royal Caribbean for the development of a new world-class cruise port. With this deal, along with Celebration Key, Grand Bahama is forecast to see some 6 million tourists during the year 2028. Madam President, the government complex in 8 Mile Rock, the Obadiah Wilcombe complex, is open. The Holmes Rock Junior High School is open. This is what a new day looks like for the people of Grand Bahama. And Madam President, this is only a snapshot of what is happening in Grand Bahama under the leadership of the Honorable Minister Ginger Maria Moxie and MP Kingsley Smith, just 2 MPs. I asked the people of Grand Bahama to give the PLP all 5 and watch the $3 billion mushroom beyond your imagination. Give us Ginger Moxie in Pine Ridge, Kingsley Smith in West Grand Bahama. The people in East End need a prescription, man. The people in East End needs a prescription. Send them Dr. Monique Pratt. Parco deal in Central Grand Bahama. And Eddie Van will send Michael Pintard packing. Let us continue, Grand Bahama, to build on progress. Madam President, I support these resolutions before us today. May God continue to bless this brave administration, and may God bless the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. I thank you. No, I can't disrupt. I think.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator the Honorable Kirkland Russell, for your contribution to today's debate. As many, the chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Darren Henfield. Senator Henfield, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. At the outset, let me state my disclaimer. I love Senator Russell. I think he's a complete soldier. He fights with every fiber of his being, despite sometimes being delusional. and, the fights that he takes on. You know, Grand Bahama, Senator Russell, despite your plea, Grand Bahama last I was there as F&M country. Red. You know, and of the you say $3 billion worth of investments, right? I talked to someone in Grand Bahama recently who asked me to ask you, right, how much of that investment was inspired by this government? Inspired by this government. How much? All? Okay. How much of it came from the government's? Yeah, that's what we're talking about. Not one nickel. not one red penny, Madam President. With your indulgence, I wish to begin by extending my heartfelt and profound condolences to the family of a young man shot and killed in South Beach on Tuesday night whilst working on his car in front of his home. I actually met this young man last Sunday, and we had a good talk. We didn't get into any of the particulars about his obvious challenges, but we talked about what he wanted his life to look like in the future. He was married. He was a married young man, father, who wanted to do all he could to support his wife and his children. He was a mechanic, and he was seeking to expand his fledgling business by adding a wrecker service so that he could respond to his clients and others when the need arose. He asked me to do what I could for his younger cousin, who was interested in joining the National Youth Program. I thought that was laudable. But here is a young man with all of these challenges, and he was seeking to find a path for his younger cousin, a more progressive, a more positive path for him to go upon. Now he's dead. A young man doing his best, I believe, to turn his life around, but his past would not let him go. Madam President, too many young men are being slaughtered in our streets. And it's all so senseless to me. Just too many guns in this town, and I don't mean to mimic the song. It seems everyone who desires to have a weapon, they can get one readily. Too many killings because someone wants to exact revenge, Madam President, and to make a statement. Not stopping once to think what their actions would cause to themselves, their family, and to the family which they set out to destroy. They leave behind fatherless children in the wake of their destruction. Children, if not cared for and mentored, by people like Senator Duncombe, who has a wonderful program to keep young men on the right path, are almost likely to continue this vicious cycle of revenge and senseless killings. The question is, where does it end, Madam President? I know it's now a constant refrain, but I again ask, beg, implore our young men to lay down your guns before destroying more lives. Stop for a moment to seriously consider the full consequences of your actions before taking up a gun and pulling a trigger. It doesn't make you a bigger man. It doesn't make you a stronger man. In fact, it's the coward's way out, because it's the easy way out. Before you sit down and seek to resolve your conflict, your issue, you end it with a gun. This means that we must do more to strengthen and protect our borders, because if we don't, the results will be the same. You'll find more widows, more fatherless children, more mothers and fathers that grieve. Yesterday I went to the family and with my team, and we tried to bring words of comfort, and we prayed, and we left, but we left them in faith that God will lighten the burden, ease the heavy load. Yet again, Madam President, last evening we heard of another young man who was shot reportedly on East Street South. Thankfully not fatally, but it raises concerns of a possible ongoing feud. These feuds can last a pretty long time. Historically, we've seen how these things play out. Last night, shooting reportedly took place near New Hope Drive, East Street South. The young man, according to reports, refuses to cooperate with the police. He went for treatment and he left. I therefore implore the police and authorities to increase their presence on patrols in that area. Hopefully, by so doing, they can mitigate some of these senseless attacks and killings that have become so prevalent in our streets. Thank you, Madam President, for your kind indulgence. As we come to this place today for what might very well be the last time during the life of this administration and this Parliament, I can't help but be reminded of a song made famous by Frank Sinatra called My Way. I think one time I saw the Prime Minister singing that song. I Did It My Way. Beautiful classic. Classic. Everybody loves that song. The lyrics of this classic is instructive. It says, and now the end is near, and so I face the final curtain. I'm no singer, my sister can sing. It says, now the end is near, and so I face the final curtain. Goes on to say, my friend, I'll say it clear. I'll state my case of which I'm certain. I've lived a life, Russell, that's full. I've traveled each and every highway. And more, much more than this, I did it my way. Now we know the Prime Minister traveled some highways in this last 5 years. I don't know that we could safely say each and every one, but there are not many that he did not trod upon. Traveled all these highways whilst Bahamians struggled and remained challenged to put food on their tables and to make ends meet. Many forced to decide whether or not they should pay the light bill or the water bill. This is the reality of what we face. Whilst the government was busy traveling the world to the tune of about $60 million. You know, imagine how many homes $60 million could build. I didn't say you don't travel. You have to travel to do government's business. But you don't have to travel in such large contingents to feed monkeys. In fact, on one trip, Bahamian taxpayers had to pay over $1 million. Madam President, I ain't gonna be long. This can be quick. We now find ourselves in this place trying to do whatever is necessary to hold on as the curtain falls for the final time on this brave administration. Brave but very disappointing version of the PLP. PLP that we've become accustomed to was a PLP that did things transformative, transformational. So Lyndon's PLP brought us the Defense Force, which I'm a proud, proud veteran of, right? A proud veteran of. He brought us NIB, of which we all happy to be a part of. I didn't disturb you, Brother Russell. I didn't disturb you, Brother Russell. Lyndon brought us the NIB, UB, formerly the College of the Bahamas. Transformational institutions. And I look around and I thought about Prime Minister Christie, who brought us Bahamas and some other things to do it. To do it what? BAMSI. BAMSI was a good thing. Quite not yet hit the mark by either administrations that we believe it ought to go to, that it could go to. Madam President, now we find ourselves in this place trying to do whatever is necessary to hold on to power. And I ask people, not facetiously, all the time, to show me what this government did so transformational that deserves them getting another opportunity to lead this country. What progress is it that this government seeks to improve on or to carry on with? What progress? What progress? You know, you came to office, you opened a port that we built, which you said that we were giving away the patrimony of Bahamians for. But that's the same port that brings in 10 million tourists now, and you brag about it. Open up the bridge in Abaco after Dorian. And even he had the decency to call my name. Yeah, I mean, I went because of Papa. He called me and asked me if I was invited, and I said no. And he said, well, you got to go. That's the kind of thing we're dealing with here. Madam President, today we will convey land on the pit road and Georgetown Exuma to the minister responsible for housing, with the view that it will cause more Bahamians to have homes and to become homeowners. You know, home ownership, as was indicated by the number of the speakers, is perhaps the single greatest investment that a Bahamian will make. It's the Bahamian dream. When I got my mortgage, I was a young Marine, in my 20s. It was like what I paid, probably about $600 a month. But that was almost my full salary. So my wife took care of other things and mine, because I could assign my salary with being in the government. And I appreciate the Defense Force. I appreciate the Defense Force because I said to the professor here a while ago, I'd never been to a private school. And that's why I embraced public service. I went to Abaco Central High, I joined the Defense Force, I went to Britannia Royal Naval College, you heard this before. I wound up in UB, I went to law school, and then I went to do a master's because of my public service. And I'd like to see more individuals with that kind of opportunity. And the privilege to give back to our country and our community, to risk it all sometimes, serving in foreign lands and living at sea in dangerous boats. What we saw yesterday, Brother Russell, as you talked about in that other place, something that should not be permissible for any government to do in law. Minutes away from a general election, we saw a government come to the Bahamian people and ask them to write a check for $280 million to buy a power company in Grand Bahama. Minutes away from a general election, right? And then pitch this argument that because we won't support that, we don't care about the people of Grand Bahama. What utter nonsense. What utter rubbish. You're buying assets that you don't tell us what it's worth. You don't tell us how you're going to run it. You don't tell us anything. In fact, you haven't told us anything about BPL. It took a long time in here for us to get out of people in this country that we had divested of BPL. And I remember when Prime Minister Hubert Ingram and co. were trying to divest of the public corporation of Batelco. And they were back and forth from court and all over the place, doing all kinds of things. And he wasn't hiding anything, you know. Everything was open in the Parliament. But we don't know what kind of sale you had for BPL. You said it was a fire sale. We don't know what kind of sale you had for BPL. We're still waiting to hear. So it's almost like you're schizophrenic, you're double-minded. And the Bible says a double-minded man is unstable, right? So you sell one power company, BPL, and then you go and try and buy another one. And everybody knows that BPL is heavily subsidized by the government. BPL, all public corporations are heavily subsidized. BPL, Bahamas Air, the water and sewage. They have to be. Because we settled over a sparse archipelago, islands, and we want all of our people to be treated equally. And so we make up the difference. We make up the difference in order for flights to go to Inagua and Meguana. I don't know if they fly there. Aucklands, right? We make up the difference. And so if you wanted to help the people of Grand Bahama, don't rush to do things that you can't explain to the Bahamian people. It looks dodgy, it looks sketchy. And then you come and make this red herring argument that we don't care. I mean, I spent 40 years of my life plus, from a young boy, 18 years old, serving in government service. I don't care about the Bahamas. I spent 40 years plus in the government service, risking my life at sea, at night, in the dark, in the mornings, and searching keys, and sleeping in a tent in Haiti. We don't care about our people and our country. We all care about the country, and I always say this. We all on either side of this divide care about the country. You don't have to pull us down to make you lift up higher. Let's be honest about the whole thing, right? If what you're doing don't make sense, it is our job to say, this is not making sense to us. This is not making sense to us. It's not making sense to us. You'd have been, in my mind, you'd have been better off if you'd gone and put that money in the Rand Memorial Hospital. If you had taken some of that money and put it in the airport, that's still trashed, that can't get the pre-clearance back because it's trashed, and Grand Bahamians having to jump on an airplane to fly to Nassau, if they want to pre-clear, fly to Nassau and then jump on another plane and go to the United States if they want to pre-clear. I mean, you had a big show over the hotel, your hotel. Break down the window, break down some things, and the next day, pictures circulating with the fellow. I don't take much stock to these pictures, you know, because one time they had a picture with me and former Prime Minister Menace, and I think we were in New York or maybe Mar-a-Lago, Florida, where we went to meet President Trump. And they took an isolated photograph with three of us sitting in the corner, chatting, and put that out there. And say, this is how they do to meet the president. Sitting there like lost soldiers. So I don't put much stock into these things, right? Because I know how social media could manipulate stuff. But some will be grateful now to go meet Trump. We met him but 2 or 3 times. Me once on my own and or twice on my own, and the Prime Minister, right? Because you meet world leaders, especially those that have so much influence over the way we live in the Bahamas, over the way we survive. And you can't be reckless in your approach. You have to be measured. You have to look at the whole, the totality of the whole thing, right? Then I load this argument over the passports because we need, whatever the problem is, the fraudulent documents that are ending up at the passport office, we need to fix that. We don't need to lay blame about a policy, and I don't know when it got so normal. No, I'll explain to you if you want me to, but if you're gonna sit there and don't listen, I want to tell you how it happened. Just let me tell you how it happened, and then you could say, no, stop laying blame. We have a problem. We have a problem. I wrote about last year, a year ago, before the leader of the opposition made his comments about passports being on the plane and stuff. People call us and tell us these things. People who see them. People who walk up to the people at Bahamas Air with a bag and say, I want this to go to Haiti. Right? People see them and they call us and they tell us. But it's, you know, we ain't see it as hearsay and they ain't got no evidence to prove what they say. Right? But all of a sudden, we know now there are 90-something people, passports that are in jeopardy, and however many people before the courts. And the policy in 2019 was simple, you know. All the policy was to expedite the renewal of those persons who had an electronic passport, an e-passport. Not new passport applicants, none of that. They stuck to the same strictures as they did to get the e-passport originally. And so if you had an e-passport and you went through all that rigorous thing about your mother's birth certificate, where your grandmother went to school and all of these things, we thought that if you've gone through all of that and you were approved for an e-passport, that you shouldn't have to go through that a second time. And if you did that in 2019, here's the kicker here. If you did that in 2019, you probably got your passport for 10 years, right? So those passports that were issued in 2019 will not be up for renewal until when? 2029. 10 years later. So these said here now, I mean, they can't be none of them that were issued according to the thing in 2019, according to the policy. And when since did it come so common that we would take cabinet policies outside of the cabinet and talk about them, any and everybody taking the cabinet policy. And we got to be careful with these precedents that we set, you know. That means that a minister at a cabinet table has to be careful how he speaks his mind. Because he doesn't know, or she doesn't know, where that document might end up. There's no where the cabinet memorandum, which is confidential, which is against convention, that you speak to them outside of the cabinet. There's no where it's going to end up. And so we lay down all sense and sensibility, and we do stuff. Now, one more thing, right? And then I'll leave this alone. ICAO approves what we do, then we issue passports, and then these applications, the standards are set by ICAO. There's no way that we can set standards in passport applications that are not approved by this international body established for the very purpose. And then you don't want us to talk about it. You don't want us to talk about it. You say we're putting the passport in jeopardy. Well, you think people in the world don't know that they have these documents? Some of them have these documents now holding. Maybe. Who knows? But it'll all come out to wash, you know. It may be lawful what the government is doing with the shares for Emira. It may be lawful, right? But it is certainly suspect when a government can come to the people just days ahead of a general election and ask for support to borrow almost $300 million. You know, for what many might consider an ill-advised venture. Ill-advised. I say many, not you. Maybe not you. I say many. It simply doesn't make sense that you would go to great pains to divest, some might say secretly, of our power company, BPL, which we could not run then, and move to buy another power company. What we do? We got better overnight. Madam President, we on this side believe that governments must move heaven and earth to meet the housing needs, any administration, to meet the housing needs of the Bahamian people. Whilst canvassing in South Beach, you know, I run into young couples all the time whose most pressing issue is how they could acquire a home. Because as I said, a home is such a wonderful thing that you could go in and, you know, when I as a young man, it's probably about 27, and I took my second home because that was my second son, because we were fortunate enough that my father-in-law and I said, somebody said something here about Long Island men and houses and land. My father-in-law had a house in Mount Pleasant, which he allowed my wife and I to stay in, rent-free. For his wonderful guy, right? No, he's from Long Island, Band Ground, right? Edgecombe from Long Island, Band Ground. Wonderful man, right? Now, he didn't agree that I would marry, but that's another. simply because I didn't have a house or land, right? And so that's why that was his. He was wondering how could you take care of my daughter, right?
And how much years y'all been married?
41 this year.
41, thank God.
41 years this year, right?
God is good.
And when I took my second home to our house, because, you know, you're not paying rent, all you had to pay was a little utilities and water bill and a little food, I literally wept. I laid him in the bed and I literally wept. And because it filled my heart to say that you are now in your own house.
Yes.
You got your little piece of the Bahamian dream, a little piece of the rock. Now I had some money to pay, right? Of course it was. Of course it was. Of course it was. But I got a loan from a private bank. I didn't go to the government, right? Because I had a good head start.
Yes.
And so young families ask me all the time, how are we going to make it? We can't come up with a down payment. We can't pay for the land because the land is so costly. And so we have to be creative. We have to find ways and means to do it so that we can get them in their homes. And so the rising cost of living and all that goes into getting a home simply made it too difficult for young families to get their piece of the rock. It's just too expensive for them. Simply put, too many Bahamian families are unable to afford even the lowest priced homes in this country. So the housing revolution that we speak about in the Free National Movement, which you say we can't do.
Who say that? No one say that.
Everybody says we can't.
No.
You know,
I mean,
you know,
we only saying that because Pinta ain't gonna never win.
you know, that's what you mean. That's what you mean. You don't mean, okay. So now I understand better. I understand better your disposition. So we propose to build 1,000 homes. We propose to build 1,000 homes in one each year of the 5-year. Yeah, because, you know, technology has advanced so that you can build prefab homes. So Ruben Raming alluded to it, that when we were in Barbados, I think it was, we went to a site where these homes were built. And they turned them out just like that, like a factory. It's not laying blocks, you know, you lay slabs, right? And these homes are able to withstand Category 5s, right? And so the experts tell us that we're able to do it. But it's not new for the Free National Movement, you know. We build more houses, even though you all say we ain't build none.
We talked about last term.
No. If you can talk about last time, then You can't talk.
I can't talk with when I was.
If you can talk about last time, then you can't talk about what Lyndon did in 1973.
I say anything about Cylinder, you
Right?
say that.
No, but
He
they
help
did.
you
They,
give
they,
you- you say
but so
I
let me,
can't
so let me,
know
so let me talk about what I want. Let me talk about what I want.
Come on, I do it.
Where these students from?
They from Grand Bahama.
If
Louis
y'all from
Yard,
Bahama?
Now
Louis,
they don't have to worry about the light.
Louis
Welcome,
Yard,
Louis
Frank-
Yard. Welcome,
Yes.
welcome, welcome. Louis Yard was where the F&M made its
Grandma.
first mark. You all know the history of that?
That, all I should tell you is never vote F&M.
There was a, yeah. There was a big broke down in Louis Yard. Big broke down in Louis Yard, and then after that, yeah, this is the last day. And then after that, Grand Bahama delivered the firstborn of the Free National Movement, who was Maurice Moore. Y'all know that name, Maurice Moore?
And he should be in the
Know the-
moorings.
All right.
Go in.
No, come on, that's an honorable, that's an honorable, that's an honorable,
Man,
honorable excellency ambassador and everything else. And so, Madam President, this administration brags a lot about their housing accomplishments. But you know,
So we
how
should
many homes did you build? Did you build 70, 100? How many did you build?
5,000 like yours.
You didn't build 100 homes in 5 years. You didn't build 100 homes in five years.
How much y'all built in the last
Right?
5 years? When
You didn't build
foreign
100
minister?
homes in 5 years.
We built more than 100
Right?
homes in 5 years.
And you had no hurricane. You had no pandemic. You had no pandemic.
Because
You
we
had
had
no-
hurricanes.
you- listen,
But it
y'all-
was in
Why
category
y'all look,
5.
Madam President, why they don't leave me alone though? Let me deal with what I deal with.
No, not today. Not today, Senator Handfield. Not today, Senator Handfield. And Senator Handfield, speak to the chair, and I can offer you
Speaking
protection.
to you, Madam President. Every time
What
I
if
call
you-
your name, that means I'm speaking to you. And so I say, Madam President. No, I have to look at the Bahamian people when I talk. Look at the Bahamian people. And they built less than 100 homes with no hurricanes, with no pandemic, with no major challenge. Should have done better than that. You could have done better than that if you hadn't traveled so much. If you hadn't traveled and if you hadn't hired so many consultants for $200 million. $200 million worth. You know, the Ingram administration built homes all across this country. Maybe 4 in Salvador. I know, but Spring City and Abaco, because that's where, that's where I'm from. Exuma, New Providence, all kinds of subdivisions, Flamingo Gardens and Elizabeth Estates, I believe, and Pride 2 and 3, I think, because we had to go in and clean up Pride 1. Dignity Gardens 2, and more. Madam Chair, we built plenty of homes. But I'm not surprised when the PLP say we can't do something, because the PLP was saying for years that we could not put roads in the Family Islands, tar roads, and lights in some of these far-flung islands. You remember that? You remember that? For years and years. So it couldn't be done. So it's too expensive. It couldn't be done for 5 people to get all them light in Rumkey and other places. I remember one night I was on a bridge of a boat navigating, and I asked the quartermaster, I said, what's all that light over there? And he said, sir, that's Rumkey. I said, boy, you lost. You got to be lost. Rumkey cannot have all of that light. Go and do a running fix and show me on the chart. Bye. Y'all take care.
Bill on progress.
We work for y'all, We work for y'all. Y'all take care. Y'all take care. Say hello to your mom and your dad. Good to have you all here today. All right. And in 1992, Madam Chair, Prime Minister Hubert Ingram lit up these islands. I could drive from Marsh Harbor to Sandy Point, which was 50 miles and minutes if I wanted to be fast. But it used to take, you average from 75 miles per hour. Highway, good, decent highway, right? So the F&M is known for doing what PLP say we can't do, extraordinary things. And we're going to do extraordinary things in a few short weeks.
Yeah, loose.
in a few short weeks. In a few short weeks. After Dorian, we left 5 homes under construction. And I'm not going to be deceitful or duplicitous about this. In Central Pines, 5 homes we left under construction, the roof on. But it was private money, private funding from a group out of Bakers Bay. I think they were called Passerine. And I still don't know, we still don't know, at least if they did, I don't know, what happened to those 5 homes. They were supposed to have been given to people free of charge, gratis. I don't know what happened to them. Y'all don't tell people much. They should have been given to 5 Bahamian families that qualified for them. Free, no cost. Know what happened to them? I don't know. So maybe somebody could say. But here we are in the moment, in this moment in our history, where the cost of a decent home in the Bahamas is probably nearly $300,000. A decent home. And then that cost is likely to climb because we saw the supplies challenge, the supply chain challenge after COVID. And so we know what's going on now in the Middle East. And so we expect more challenges in shipping. And so we're going to have to be creative in the way that we employ private funding, private money. The minister alluded to it. And government creativity to get people in their homes. We're going to be creative in the way that we do it. We have the wherewithal. But what we cannot do in housing is to continue the status quo. We can't do that. We have to change something. So we on this side have determined to build 1,000 homes a year over the next 5 years. That's our objective. That's our goal. That's our goal. Oh man, only y'all has come with campaign strategy, man. Everything y'all is do but campaigning and tricks. And tricks. All the F&M administration wants to do is achieve what is best for Bahamians, all Bahamians, not just some Bahamians, all Bahamians. Bahamians won't be fooled this time, by that good propaganda. Y'all got a good propaganda machine. Y'all are the best at propaganda. The best I've seen since, I don't want to say since that fell in the Third Reich, because he was very good. But y'all are very good. Y'all are very good. No, I'm not doing that. Don't say that. Don't say that. I have some good friends. I just saw one of my good friends from the PLP on Sunday, a man I admire so greatly, Sean McQueenie. I admire him so greatly, and we had an opportunity to sit and chat, and I enjoyed that moment so much because, you sit at the feet of Camellia and you learn. And when you don't see colors, you could do that. But there are some people who see colors always. They always see in red. They always see in red, They always see in red. They see in red, if this administration, Madam President, if this administration truly cared about Bahamians having homes, they'd use some of the millions of dollars they spent on consultants and flying all over the world. They'd have used some of the money they doing now, and I didn't know, Senator Ellis, that they were digging up sidewalks in your area as well. What's that about? What looks to me to be perfectly good sidewalks are being dug up. No tree. And I looked, I go onto the route. I go onto the route of the sidewalk, right?
2 years ago, they talked about how sidewalks so necessary.
I go onto the route of the sidewalk, right there on East Street South, right? Right in front of the CV Battle and them. And I looked, and I say, trees under the sidewalk digging it up or nothing. I just look like a perfectly good sidewalk to me.
You don't know trees underneath there and they causing water pressure issues.
Well, say something to somebody. Say something to somebody. Say this why we doing this. Say something to somebody.
When y'all are the incompetent authority.
Say something to somebody. Say this why we doing this.
Order.
Say something to somebody.
Senator Handfield,
They could use
please
some of
speak
that
to the
money.
chair.
They could use some of that money, Madam President, that they destroying perfectly good sidewalks with. Right? to help some Bahamians get some homes. They could do that. And for Christ's sake, let somebody go and sweep off the track out there by Goodman's Bay. It's disgraceful. The sand has come from the sea or wherever on the side, on the shore there. On the sidewalk and all over the place, the sand. You go there to walk, you got to go back up on the grass and then come around this way. We could do better than that, man, especially when you don't give beaches and parks extra 17 million that nobody wouldn't say nothing about. No, if you don't tell us what it is, we tell you what we had is. You could put it to rest, All you gotta do is say, that's what it is. Yeah, I just about there, but go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you, Senator Henfield. Madam President, I move that the business of the Senate do continue beyond the 1 p.m. hour.
It has been moved and seconded that the business of the Senate continue beyond the 1 p.m. hour. As many hours in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. The business of the Senate will proceed beyond the 1 p.m. hour. Chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Darren Henfield.
Thank you. Finally, Madam President, I got a message from a retired nurse, right? Which decried the state of affairs at the South Beach Clinic. And this is what she said to me. I went outside to call her to confirm this message, right? The notion that a stage 3 cancer patient could not be fitted with a port at the clinic because there was no water. You could check the sources and see. Instead, she was told to go home and come back on Friday. She wasn't sent to another facility. This is a retired nurse who told me this, also a cancer survivor. And that's Friday is tomorrow. So she had to suffer. The port is put in, as I understand it, so that they could be medicated to help with the pain and what have you. She was forced to endure the pain over the last 4 days. Hopefully tomorrow they'll be able to do it. But how can the water be off at the clinic though? I mean, you got to bring in a portable water or something, Bowser or something, right? So I take this time, Madam President, to thank the former Prime Minister for affording me the privilege of serving in this place as the leader of the opposition, and to thank my leader, who confirmed my position here when he took the helm of the Free National Movement as leader of the opposition. This was indeed an interesting journey. It was an absolute pleasure for me to work with my colleagues on this side, including Senator Maxine Seymour, who is not here with us. She's not physically here with us, but she's here with us in spirit. We had a little chat was it last night or night before? She's here with us in spirit. And I want to thank the leader of government business in this place, the Honorable Michael Halkitis, who made my job here easy as leader of opposition business here in this place. There was never a time that I could recall that we could not meet eye to eye and cooperate. In times when I had things to do, he had things to do, we could always find a medium, a good, happy medium that we could move on with. I thank all of my colleagues here. I got to know this Senator Ronnie Duncombe, who I'm so proud to know and so pleased to be a part of, albeit from a distance now, what he does in this place. Madam President, despite what may seem like rough days some days in here, I love and respect all of you. Because my view is that I believe all of us, each of us in our own way, are working for a better Bahamas. 4 of you will sit on this side when you come back here. four of you will sit on this side when you come back to this place. And so you will appreciate what it is to be on that side as well as this side. I got my eye on one who I know will be on this side. Right? And so at the end of the day, I believe that we all mean the best for this country and for our people. We just have different ways of getting there. And so with that, Madam President, I thank you, and I say that God bless each and every one of you, and God bless the Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
Thank you, Senator Honorable Darren Henfield, for your contribution, as many. The chair recognizes Senator Honorable Michael Halkitis.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Madam President. And I want to thank all senators who contributed to the resolutions. As usual, passionate and informative presentations. I also want to join my colleague, Senator Tyrell Young, in wishing his father, Gary Young, happy birthday. And even though they have left, I want to greet the teachers and students from the Eva Hilton Primary Grade 1. And you know the Eva Hilton Primary School won the primary division of Junior Junkanoo, and I had the opportunity to celebrate with them a few weeks ago, Madam President. They are in the St. Barnabas constituency. And also, I welcome and greet the teachers and the students from the Lewis Yard Primary School in Grand Bahama. You know, when they walked in, when the students from Eva Hilton walked in, Senator Ramming was on his feet, and he stopped mid-flight and said, oh, what a, you know, I think he said words to the fact that this place got beautiful all of a sudden. And that is the effect that children have on us, Madam President, and I can say, you know, whenever I see them, the youngsters, you recognize and you're reminded of what we're working for, which is for them to have a brighter future, Madam President, and also to thank the teachers, because you could see them making sure the students came in and directing them, and you can see they were in good care. Yes, and Madam President, you know, in that other place, they adjourned until the 15th of April. And many observers and many acute observers and many keen observers and experienced observers have drawn a particular conclusion. And so you will hear senators, as we meet here, thanking everyone. And I also want to thank my colleague on the side opposite, Senator Henfield, again, who we've worked very well together. Whenever we've sought concurrence to do something, he's most graciously agreed, and I think we were able to move along. We weren't able to agree on everything, but that is the essence of public policy, Madam President, but we can do so by stating our case and disagree without being disagreeable. And so I want to, Senator Enfield asked me while I'm on my feet to convey his thanks and appreciation to the staff of the Senate, who is always there, and who juggle responsibilities for the House of Assembly and for the Senate. And we are hopeful, and we will continue to work with the new Parliamentary Service Commission to ensure that they are properly resourced, so as we move forward, we can be more staff and a little less pressure on them. But you know, Madam President, I was always amazed when I sat in that other place, when you asked the clerks for something, I need a copy of this. Miraculously, they just go and they come back, and there you have it. I don't know how they do it, but thank you very much for your service. Madam President, and so I think the point of the whole debate was the pursuit of affordable housing is a laudable pursuit. There are challenges that remain, from employment to affordability, to availability of land, et cetera, but I think, and I am hopeful that these resolutions go some way in beginning to ease some of that pressure and make availability to more widespread to the population. Because like Senator Henfield, you know, as you move about, one of the, right up there, us concerns is housing. You know, people who want their own home, people who want the rent to own, people who, because, you know, they might have children and then potential landlords say, no children, or not too many children, or, you know, whatever. The prices are high and people want a sense of ownership, so we have to do what we can to assist. And this is a start, and obviously there's much more to do in terms of government and private sector. And I think that's, we have heard the commitment of the side opposite to what they would like to do, and we have, again, we have a commitment to provide affordable housing. And so, Madam President, with that, once again, thank members, and I will move each one individually. And so, first, I'll read the first and last paragraphs. This is the Bozine land. Whereas by deed of exchange dated 27th of day of June, AD 2025, between the Treasurer of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, the corporation sole established under Section 4.1 of the Ministry of Finance Act, Chapter 23, Revised Statute Law of the Bahamas 2000, the Act and Howell Road Properties Limited, a company incorporated under the laws of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. The company transferred to the Treasurer all that certain piece or parcel of land hereinafter described in the first schedule, attached hereto, quote, the Bozine land, in exchange for a crown grant of 80 acres or thereabouts on the island of Abaco. Now therefore be it resolved that pursuant to Section 5.3a of the Act, this House approves the conveyance of the Bozine land to the Minister responsible for housing for a nominal amount of $10 Bahamian.
Is there a seconder?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the following resolution be agreed. Whereas, by a deed of exchange dated the 27th day of June, AD 2025, between the Treasurer of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, the Treasurer, a corporation sole established under Section 4.1 of the Ministry of Finance Act, Chapter 23, Revised Statute Law of the Bahamas 2000, the Act, and Howell Road Properties Limited, a company incorporated under the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, the company transferred to the Treasurer all that certain piece or parcel of land hereinafter described in the first schedule attached hereto, the Bozine land, in exchange for a crown grant of 80 acres or thereabout on the island of Abaco. Now therefore, be it resolved that pursuant to Section 5.3a of the Act, this House approves the conveyance of the Bozine land to the Minister responsible for housing for a nominal fee of $10. As many as in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. The resolution is agreed. Further resolutions?
Yes, Madam President, whereas the Treasurer of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, hereinafter referred to as the Treasurer, a corporation sole established under Section 4.1 of the Ministry of Finance Act, Chapter 23, Revised Statute Law of the Bahamas 2000, hereinafter referred to as the Act, is seized in fee simple in possession of the hereditaments more particularly described in the schedules hereto, hereinafter referred to as the said hereditaments. Now therefore be it resolved that pursuant to Section 5.3a of the Ministry of Finance Act, this House approves the conveyance of the said land in the schedule to the Minister responsible for housing for a nominal amount of $10 Bahamian.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the following resolution be agreed. Whereas the Treasurer of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, hereinafter referred to as the Treasurer, a corporation sole, established under Section 4.1 of the Ministry of Finance Act, Chapter 23, Revised Statute Law of the Bahamas 2000, hereinafter referred to as the Act, is seized in fee simple in possession of the hereditaments more particularly described in the schedules hereto, hereinafter referred to as the said hereditaments. Now therefore be it resolved that pursuant to Section 53A of the Ministry of Finance Act, the House approves the conveyance of the said land in the schedule to the minister responsible for housing for a nominal fee of $10. As many as in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. The resolution is agreed. Further resolutions?
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I move that the following resolution be agreed. Whereas by declaration of intended acquisition dated 6th day of October AD 2025 and published in the Extraordinary Gazette dated 8th day of October AD 2025, the minister responsible for the acquisition and disposition of lands, the promoter, declared that it was his intention to acquire the land described in the schedule hereto for a public purpose, namely, making land available by way of sale, lease, or otherwise for the housing of persons of low or middle income and for other uses related thereto. Now therefore be it resolved that pursuant to Section 53A of the Ministry of Finance Act, this House approve the conveyance of the said land in the schedule to the minister responsible for housing for a nominal amount of $10 Bahamian.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the following resolution be agreed. Whereas, by declaration of intended acquisition dated the 6th day of October, AD 2025, and published in the Extraordinary Gazette dated the 8th day of October, AD 2025, the minister responsible for the acquisition and disposition of lands, the promoter, declared that it was his intention to acquire the land described in the schedule hereto for the public purpose, namely, making land available by way of sale, lease, or otherwise for the housing of persons of low or middle income and for uses related thereto. Now therefore, be it resolved that pursuant to Section 53A of the Ministry of Finance Act, this House approves the conveyance of the said land to the minister responsible for housing for a nominal fee of $10 Bahamian. As many as in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is agreed. The resolution is agreed. Further resolutions?
No further resolutions, Madam President.
Discharge of select committees? Notices of future meetings?
Renew all notices in the name of the government, Madam President.
Orders for clerk? Adjournment?
Madam President, I move that the Senate at its rising do adjourn sine die.
Is there a seconder?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the Senate at its rising do adjourn sine die. Final adjournment?
Madam President, I move that the Senate do now adjourn.
Is there a seconder?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the Senate do now adjourn.